difficulties. I'd like to announce, and I first like to apologize for coming in late. We had a little bit longer closed session than normal. So we apologize for that. And I'd like to let you know that this meeting is being webcast live and recorded. The recording or webcast may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. The Pledge of Allegiance this evening will be led by Board Member Foster, if you would, please.
Hand over heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. You did that as if you've known it. All right. I have some actions that we took in closed session. If you'll bear with me for a few minutes, I'll read them. On a unanimous vote by the board, we chose to appoint Alex Nathan Hernandez to a position of Chief Business Officer for Visalia Unified School District. Mr. Hernandez has been an employee of Visalia Unified School District for 15 years. In addition to his current role of Chief Financial Officer, which he has had for the last 5 years, Mr. Hernandez also served as Administrator of Business Services, Director 1 of Administrative Services, and an Administrative Analysis. Prior to his employment with VUSD, he was employed with the City of Visalia for 6 years. Mr. Hernandez holds a Master's of Public Administration degree from California State University, Fresno, and a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Management from the University of Phoenix. Congratulations, Mr. Hernandez. I wish we could applaud and it would be all good that way, but Zoom doesn't accommodate us very well there.
If you could see me, you could see me clapping and shaking my hands, but you can't see me.
In a closed session on a motion by help me with this, Dee Dee. You're muted.
Which one are you on?
The principal for Conyer, Sandra Ochoa.
It was on a motion by Dr. Vasquez and a second by Ms. Naylor.
The board unanimously appoints Sandra Ochoa to the position of principal of Conyer Elementary School. Mrs. Ochoa has been employed with Visalia Unified School District for 12 years. For the past 5 years, she has been serving as the assistant principal at Ivanhoe Elementary School. Prior to her employment with VUSD, Sandra was employed with Kings Canyon Unified School District. During her employment with VUSD, Ms. Ochoa has served as an education specialist at Houston Elementary School and filled in as the acting principal at Cottonwood Creek Elementary School. Ms. Ochoa earned both a Master's of Arts degree in Special Education and a Bachelor of Arts degree in Liberal Studies from California State University, Fresno. She also holds an Administrative Service credential, a multiple subject teaching credential, Education Specialist Instruction credential, Autism Spectrum Disorder authorization, and a bilingual cross-cultural language and academic authorization. Very impressive, and I understand that she is just full of energy, and we're looking forward to her to running Conyer School. Congratulations. And finally, on a motion by
Ms. Gamoyan.
And a second.
Mr. Guerrero.
The board appointed Carrie Stevens to the position of Administrative Services of Education. I'm sorry, the vote was not unanimous. The vote was 6 in favor and 1 no. Ms. Stevens has been employed with the Tulare County Office of Education as a Program Manager 2 for the last 5 years. In this position, she has overseen and coordinated Visalia Academic Collaborative for Exceptional Learners program. Prior to this, Carrie was employed with VUSD School District for 11 years. During her employment with VUSD, Ms. Stevens served as a resource specialist at Viva Blunt Elementary School and a program specialist for 4 years in the district office. Carrie earned a Master of Arts degree in teaching with specialization in the special education from National University, as well as a Bachelor of Arts degree in liberal studies from California State University, Fresno. She also holds a level 2 education specialist credential in mild to moderate disabilities and an autism spectrum disorder certification. In addition, Ms. Stevens holds an administrative services credential. Congratulations to Ms. Stevenson. That really feels weird. It's always fun to see them stand up and actually applause for them. We owe them one. How's that? Okay, moving on. The revisions to the agenda this evening are number 12, number 17, number 23, 24, and 48. And I'll now turn it over to Dr. Ravelin for public recognition of some important people.
Good evening, Board President Crabtree, members of the board and public and administration and such that are watching. Tonight, I have the pleasure of sharing with you a short video that we made since we are not able to honor our Employees of the Year in public. And we have some of them who were able to join us tonight who will be with us on the Zoom meeting. So Sam Chavez is our VUSD School Employee of the Year. Christy De Armand is our Elementary School Teacher of the Year. Jessica Malmston is our Middle School Teacher of the Year. John Kuhn, our High School Teacher of the Year. And Sandra Ochoa, who you just appointed, is our Administrator of the Year. Again, I'm going to share a short video with you, and then we're going to give those folks who are able to join us a chance to speak. So I will ask our host to turn their video on in just a moment. We're just getting the video connected. It's a little bit slow in the Zoom meeting. Each year, VUSD honors one School Employee of the Year, one Administrator of the Year, and an Outstanding Teacher of the Year from each level, elementary, middle, and high school. Today, I have the pleasure of presenting a short video to honor the Employees of the Year for 2020. Although we cannot celebrate together, we would like to recognize them for all they do. Please join us in celebrating these outstanding individuals. Hola. Soy doctora Tamara Rabolín, Superintendente del Distrito Escolar Unificado de Visalia. Hoy tengo el placer de presentar un video para honrar a los empleados del año para 2020. Únese a nosotros para celebrar a estas personas excepcionales. So tonight, I don't believe that Mr. Chavez is here with us this evening. However, I think the others are. So first, I'd like to see if Christy would be willing to say a few words. Welcome, Christy, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. What an honor. It was certainly a pleasant surprise when I received the phone call from you. I was speechless at that point, somewhat am now, but definitely an honor that I never anticipated receiving. I appreciate everything that our district does to support our staff and students. Those professional development opportunities allow teachers to continuously learn and grow. And I strongly believe that those opportunities have helped me to become the teacher that I am today. So thank you very much. This is a wonderful, wonderful honor.
And thank you.
Thank you so much, Christy. And next, we have Jessica Malmston.
Hello, board members and Dr. Aveline. Thank you so much for finding a unique way to celebrate this. Like Christy said, this moment that was just breathtaking. First, I want to thank God for calling me to serve as a teacher. I really do feel that it's a call to redemptive service for me. I want to thank my family. They're always supportive and understanding of what it means to be a teacher and the time that it takes. My Ridgeview family, I love you guys. They have just been there for me for the past few years, and they've supported me in so much, and I love you all to death. Also, I want to thank the equity team and induction support, because we get those amazing opportunities to collaborate together, and the work that we're able to do for the district is just, it's very eye-opening for me, and it's an amazing opportunity. And most importantly, my students and parents that make this work what I imagined it would be when I wanted to be a teacher. So I love all of you, and thank you so much for your support.
Thank you. And John Kuhn.
Hello, good evening. Do I get to say a few words?
You do, please.
Well, first of all, I'd like to start off and say that I'm absolutely humbled by the honor of being chosen for something like this. I hope I serve as a representative of the cross section of the great people that we get to work with every day. And I promise you, I won't let it go to my head. And I promise you tomorrow morning, I'll hit the ground running. They said I could say a few words, and rather than talk about myself, I was hoping I might offer up something inspirational. So if you'll stick with me a minute here. First of all, to all my colleagues, our leadership, my family, these are unprecedented times, and I'm happy to be in it with you. You folks are we're all in a lifeboat together, and we're going to get through this. I truly believe that the rocky road we're on is going to lead us to all better versions of ourselves and a better version of education. It might be a little bit of growing pains of getting there, but I truly believe we're going to get there. To the parents and good folks in the community of Visalia, I'd like to say that so many of you are dear friends of mine that have students in our program. So many of you are. And I know that so many of you've taken the time out of your busy schedules to give me a call or stop by the house and point out the many ways that maybe we haven't measured up. And I know I say that with a smile, but that's only because the folks that have done that, I truly love them in my heart. And I want you all to know that we get that. We know that you're advocating for your child. We want you to know that from my seat, from my perspective, this will never be an us against them proposition, but it will be you're advocating for your child and we're advocating for your child. And we're doing our just absolute best to make this happen, and stick with us. Believe in us. We're going to get through this one together. And most importantly, I'd like to offer up something to our students, to our younger students and our students that are going to be with us for a while. We've been on a little bit of a bumpy road. You're learning something about tenacity and resilience inside yourselves. We might have a couple more bumps ahead, but we will get through this. My dad always says that things are never as good or as bad as they seem. They're somewhere in the middle. And we're going to get through this deal. And we're going to get back on the right track. This too shall pass. To our students that are a little bit older, whether they've just left us in graduation or maybe those folks going into their senior year, I'd like to offer up a little inspiration and encouragement as well. Had a nice conversation the other night with one of Redwood's finest soon-to-be seniors. And this particular young lady was pretty doggone upset about maybe that senior year not going to start off and look like she's always dreamed it to be. And I told her a couple things. I said, Sydney, I said, first of all, missing out on what you think your senior year should be. I think it's all together right and fitting that you're pretty upset. And I think you should be extremely upset for a whole 10 minutes. And then I think it's time that we get up, dust ourselves off, and keep moving forward. Because in this life, it's never about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. And I reminded her of a quick story about everybody in my grandparents' generation. I had an old timer in our town that I asked what his senior year was like. And he said, I don't know. We got attacked. I lied about my age. And about the time my class was graduating, I was going ashore at Guadalcanal with a rifle in my hands. And that generation did good things. And the generation we got working on right now, I think are going to do even better things. They're going to make our society great, better, and the best. So all you folks out there, I know good times feel good, but it is adversity that forges the greatness inside your hearts. And I believe in all you kids. We're going to get through this. It's going to be awesome. We're going to do it together. And that's just one thing you can count on. To the board, to the superintendent, to everyone out there, to my family and to God, thank you again for this honor. And thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Well said, John.
Thank you, John. The board, in public, I want to let you know that the 3 teachers who just spoke, if you ever have the opportunity to go into their classrooms, they are all magnificent. I wish my children had those teachers so much. So thank you all for being who you are and for giving to our students and community all the time, 24/7. Last, I'd like to invite Sandra Ochoa, our new principal, who was nominated and selected as Administrator of the Year in her assistant principal role.
Yay.
And you're on mute, Sandra.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Tamara Raveline, Superintendent. I am honored. I don't know if my speech is gonna overcome Mr. Coons, but I am very honored and blessed to receive this award and be named principal for Conyer Elementary School. I am excited for this new chapter of my life, next year. I want to thank, my family for being there every step of the way. I want to thank my Ivanhoe family. I've been there for the past 5 years, and I have learned to love the community. It's very hard for me to even leave the community because it's the same place of where I grew up. So it's going to be very difficult to say goodbye to everyone there. But like I said, I wanted to thank Mr. Rodriguez for nominating me for the award. I am very honored to receive it. So I can't wait for the new year to start. And I don't know, I'm so emotional right now. I want to cry. I'm excited. I don't know, it's Dr. Kuhn, you did better. Mr. Kuhn, you did better than I did. Thank you so much. I'm very appreciative.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you so much.
You did a great job, and we're looking forward to having you at Conyer. We truly are.
As you
so
can
much.
see, we have amazing people that are part of our educational community here in
Yes.
Visalia Unified.
Yes, and I'm glad to be part of Visalia Unified School District.
Thank you
Thank you
again.
so much.
Okay, I guess we'll be moving on. I have to go back and make a couple of one announcement about revisions that I didn't receive or I missed, which is very possible. We also had revisions for number 1 enclosure, number 25, and number 42. So now that we're all legal, we will move on to enclosure number 1 of the focus on student learning Dr. Ravelin, authorization for superintendent to proceed in the learning management system selection and execute an agreement. No, wait a minute. I went too far. That was
Yeah.
2 of them. Can you do them quickly? Let's do the COVID update first, enclosure number 1. Thank you.
All right. Our meeting host is going to put the slides up here momentarily. Oh, here we go. So this is an update of where we were since the last board meeting. Things change for us on a daily basis. As many of you know from watching the news, the directives we receive from the state change on a daily basis. So just as a reminder before we start off, we have a very large community of students, adult students, staff members, and parents, families that we are supporting through this endeavor. And we want, all of us want what's best for our students and our staff to protect them, keep them safe, and return to as much normalcy as we can. So within the limits that we're required to follow, that is our plan. However, things right now don't look like we can open up traditionally from the get-go, even though we all want to do that very much so. So as a reminder, I'm not going to read all the guiding principles to you again, but our number 1 is protecting the health and safety and privacy of our students, staff, and our family. And I think this is important. It's an important time for us to remember that we have many people in the community who have experienced loss, who know people who are affected from the coronavirus. Sorry, if you go back one. Who know people and who may have had deaths in their family. And we need to be sensitive about that. As much as we're pushing to return to normalcy, we need to be sensitive towards those who are dealing with the virus now or have dealt with it. These statistics today are as of 1 o'clock this afternoon. I don't know what they're like at this time in the evening. We had a very large jump in our county today of cases. And we do not meet all the metrics to keep moving forward in Tulare County. I have on the map updated it right now. We're the 11th highest cases in the state of all the counties, and we're the 8th most deaths in the county. So I've outlined for you with the little red dots, the counties that are in what they call targeted engagement with the California Department of Public Health, meaning we're not meeting the metrics to move forward. And so we're working on that. It is really incumbent on all of us to follow the directives and the guidance from our state and local health officials, because our county isn't doing well. And the more people that suffer, you know, the more heartbreak there's going to be, but also other things such as us not being able to move forward at the pace we would like to reopen school fully. So it's incumbent upon all of us to do the best we can to protect each other. I'll go on from there. Okay, so we'll move on into the phases. Just a quick review. We are in the very beginnings of stage 3. And again, to move forward any further, we have to have met certain metrics. So we're working on that. There are many states, California, I think is the 2nd worst today, that are seeing increases in numbers that are significant. So it's just kind of worrisome right now. When we get to stage 4, that'll be everything open, no social distancing, no staying at home orders in place. As of right now, all of those orders are still in place. And so I want to review with you. I frequently get questions from staff members and parents and students, like, why do we have to follow guidance? It's just guidance. That means you don't have to follow it. So I want to make it clear to everyone that the governor's executive orders are law. So they're legally binding. We have to follow them. And in that first bullet there, you'll see way back in March that the executive order said that all residents are to heed any orders and guidance of state and local public health officials, and that includes the social distancing. So the document put out by the California Department of Public Health is binding to us as a school district. That means the social distancing is binding. And those, the governor has reaffirmed those executive orders, and so has the health department. So the 6 feet that we have to have for physical distancing, we have committees working on how many kids we could fit in various rooms and spaces, because we want to bring back as many people as possible. But right now that 6 feet of social distancing is in place, and it's a mandate for us as a school district. I also want to let you know, we kind of have layers of guidance. So the, again, CDPH guidance, California Department of Public Health, is binding for us. The California Department of Education and other guidance documents, and they're out from many, many different agencies. Those are suggestions, but Health Department is required. So that causes us again to look at the 6 feet of social distancing and other things that we can do to protect our students, but also our staff members. You know, and we have staff members who are going through medical treatments right now. They have family members who are going through medical treatments. We have students whose family members or they themselves have medical conditions. So we have to be cognizant of all of that. And when we do make a decision on how we're going to open up schools, which is some weeks out at this point, we need to make sure that we offer, and we will offer, options for our students and families who are really not in a place where they're comfortable sending their children to school at all. So we will have options, and that's been sort of a frequently asked question and concern. So we will have that. Again, some of the things that are ideas are having maybe about half the kids in a classroom so we can have 6 feet of social distancing, marking where desks would go, removing furniture or taping it off, covering it with plastic, making sure that we have one-way circulation. Hallways are problematic if you're going to keep students 6 feet away from each other, that we have people go out to recess in phases, maybe by grade level. Lunches probably not in a cafeteria because we can't do contact tracing that way, keeping cohorts of students together, plexiglass shield guards in offices and other places where appropriate. So we have a lot of people working on how to implement these kinds of things and take care of our students and our staff. As we're planning for 2021, this is, I think Mr. Kuhn or somebody earlier said it was unprecedented. States of emergency are not something we're used to dealing with. And so it is unprecedented, and states of emergency, which we're still in, create anxiety and grief and stress. And we understand all that. Uncertainties bring a lot of anxiety and stress to people. People want to know, like right now, what's it going to look like? What can you do? And things are unfolding. Friday, there was a dictate, I'll say, on face masks for the whole state. It exempted schools. And then Saturday, there was some refinement of that language that maybe schools were not exempt. And so, you know, we have to work through that. What does that mean for us? Are face shields just as good as face masks? We have many, many things that we still need to determine and get answers on before we finalize all the little details. I want to also assure all of you, whether you're a parent, a student, board member, etc., that our distance learning for fall will not be anything like this spring. Spring was like we were thrown into a blender and here you go. And so we had our staff provided the curriculum based on our pacing guides, where we should be as a district, where each grade level should be online and paper pencil type of packet. So there was options, but we know that we have a big digital divide in the district and in the area. And so we have many things that we need to overcome. And as you'll see tonight, not during this presentation, but the subsequent ones where we get deep into the curriculum issues, we are going to overcome that digital divide and make sure that our students have internet access and access to computers, and that they can do their work, whether they're at school or not, and be able to be successful and have opportunity and access. That is so very important for us. The other thing we need to remember is that education should not be the same. We need to use this chance and opportunity, as difficult as it is, to improve education overall for our students, especially those who have not perhaps found this system beneficial to them. So through technology enhancements, we can make things better for our students. We can give more students opportunities. We can make it more individualized and customized for our students to meet their needs. And so the software packages and things that you'll see later presented by others, those are not just because we are in these times we are now. It is forcing us to make decisions that we probably should have made years ago, but these are things that we need for our students so that they can be the best they can be, whether they're in a traditional coming to school every day or not. And we have to plan for many different scenarios. We do not know what the future will bring for us, and make sure that we have supports for all of our staff, student, and families in place. So we put out an initial survey, and I want to thank you all for those of you who completed it. We had about 6,000 parents, guardians, and about 1,700 students, grades 5 and above. We are working on a follow-up needs assessment survey. That was just a broad-based survey. It was open to anyone. And so we're not sure if somebody answered it, what grade level their students are, and those types of things. So this is going to be a student by student needs assessment survey. It's in development. It'll go out by the end of this week. Detailed questions, which will be one result per child. And we'll be able to see that so we can support each household with what they need. In our initial survey, again, this was not the detailed one that we're going to put out, but in the initial survey that just closed Sunday, 44% of our families said they were most comfortable with our students returning full-time with safety precautions in place. 17% approximately said they weren't comfortable at all, even with safety precautions, and they would prefer distance learning. So again, we'll have an option for that. We did also ask some questions about if we had to go hybrid, would you prefer 2 or 3 days a week or half days? And there really wasn't a significant difference in those areas. So we're going to ask more questions on the detailed survey and ask people to rank the preferences so we can get a better handle on what parents and students would prefer as far as scheduling if we do have to go to a hybrid model. We also found that there were some themes in the comments. So looking at the comments received, both pros and cons, like things that were good, things that weren't so good, a large number, about a quarter of the comments were regarding distance learning. Another quarter were on health and safety concerns, 16% on extracurricular activities, like what's going to happen with athletics and band and such. 5% were on the schedule, like what would the schedule look like, and their opinions on the schedule, and 3% on childcare. We think that the childcare number is very low, so we're going to ask a specific question about if somebody would need opportunities and information on childcare, and we're working with our community partners on that. In our next survey, again, then we'll get more detailed so that we know how to serve each individual family. So again, we're going to have a needs assessment survey that's in development, should go out by the end of this week. We have some of our committees, including our Family and Engagement Committee, meeting with focus groups. We want to make sure that we hear from all of our demographic groups in the district and are especially reaching out to those that we don't typically hear from. We're exploring technology training for our family as we get into the platforms later in the meeting. You know, our parents and guardians and those at home, they're probably going to want some training on that, we anticipate, so that they're comfortable assisting and supporting their students. So we'll ask some questions about that as well. And then we're going to ask some questions on how we can best support the students while they're at school and while they're learning at home, if that happens to be the case. We're also working with, I said, our community partners. So one of our main community partners is Pro Youth for childcare options. And we are lucky to have Dr. Marie Pinto here tonight with us, who's the executive director, to speak with us in a moment. She is also a member now of the Family and Community Engagement Committee. And she and I have been discussing some daytime options for if we have to do a hybrid. You know, we know many of our families that parents and guardians work, and where would the students go on those off days? So talking to her about that and after school activities. We've talked about making sure that if it's during the school day and it's an off day for a student, that there's internet connectivity so they can do their work on their laptops, and that the tutors would help with that. So with that, I'd like to invite Dr. Pinto, who I saw here a little bit ago, to please join us. And she might need the video turned on. I hope she's still with us.
I am.
So I have up here on the screen the plans that you are exploring. And
Yes, good. Yes. Good evening, Dr. Raveling. Good evening. Whoops, start my video. Okay. There I am. Good evening, Dr. Raveling. Good evening, Board President Crabtree and board members. Thank you so much for the opportunity this evening. As Dr. Raveling has said, we've been communicating on a regular basis, trying to prepare for the fall and for next year. Pro Youth's goal is to make sure that we support our families and our students. And so, as you can see, the plans that we have put in place, we have committed to all of our districts, all 7 districts, that we will continue to provide our expanded learning after school program. We will be at all of our schools Monday through Friday, 2 to 6 o'clock, doing normal programming. We will follow all of the district's protocols with student ratios, social distancing, masks if they're required. And so all of those protocols we are also putting into our program. So if school resumes, we will be there. If for any reason any of our districts decide to go into a hybrid program, we have submitted a plan or a plan to the Department of Education asking for flexibility on our grant requirements to be able to provide a day program while school is in session. The plan is asked to be able to start as early as dropping students off at 7:45 for those parents who need to be at work, and that we will keep those children through the end of the school day and to the end of the day, 5:30, 6 o'clock as normal. Our commitment is to be able to have the morning be a little bit more academically slanted. We would do our distance learning assistance, tutoring, literacy, things along those lines. And then as the school day ends, then we would roll into our expanded learning programs and that mirror what's happening on site. So we are in those beginning stages, waiting for approval on flexibility on all of our grant requirements. And I have been out in the community looking for alternative sites. I mean, we would rather use, high schools or middle schools that, that possibly have buildings that are not being used, because of hybrid programming. However, with that possibly not being an option, we have reached out to a number of our large churches who have Sunday schools, who have classrooms, who have space that allows us to be able to service a number of students and still put the social distancing in place with specific classrooms and things along those lines. It will be open to all students within the district, regardless of grant mandates. And we hope to be able to, be a good partner with the district and help service our students and our families. And then plan C is if it goes to full distance learning, what that would be like. It would mirror what plan B is, of being able to service those families and those students that the parents have to go back to work and those children have to have somewhere to go where they can get assistance with their distance learning. So that's what we've been working on, and working with Dr. Raveling and her administrative team. And as she said, I will now be a member of the Family and Community Engagement, so that we can ensure that we're getting the word out to the families and that we're getting all the resources out to them also. So
thank you for that.
Do we have any board members that have questions of Dr. Pinto while we still have her here?
no.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I look forward to continuing our work together.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for your partnership.
Yeah. Chuck. Yeah. All right, next I'm going to invite Assistant Superintendent Selma Villa. She is in charge of the scheduling committee, which has many subcommittees. So she is going to go through that for us.
Thank you, Dr. Raveling. Okay, Chuck, I'm not there to see you, so hopefully you can follow along with the turning of the slides. You can go ahead and move to the next one. That was just my cue that it's my turn. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Dee Dee Summervie, Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. I'm excited to be able to present to you tonight, giving you an update on the scheduling committee. So this is one of many committees that we have going on right now to decide or help to decide what school will look like when we return in August. So we initially started with 16 members in our committee. They comprised of 3 district administrators, 2 site administrators, 9 certificated staff members, so those are teachers, and then 2 classified staff members. And we've been meeting since May. We were looking at 6 different scenarios, and I'll go over those in a moment. And we decided to practice one together just to make sure we were on the same page and we understood the work moving forward. And then we divided into 5 subcommittees. And we added members to each of our committees on our own. Those subcommittees meet regularly, approximately once a week, sometimes more. And then we do that accordion style. So we go out to our subcommittees and then come back into the main committee and then keep doing that as we continue to work. Okay, Chuck. So planning for next school year, we discussed that we need to consider district conditions based on data that we have. So this is how many square feet do we have in a classroom? How many students can we fit into the classrooms? How many open classrooms do we have? How many big spaces like our NPR rooms or cafeterias, those kinds of things. We discussed that we need to be open to all ideas. We have come to realize that sometimes when someone presents something and we initially think, oh, I don't know if that's going to work, it leads us to think bigger and come up with even greater ideas than we thought possible. We vowed to consider stakeholder feedback, again, based on multiple data sources. Like, for example, we've had many parents on our committees and subcommittees that have asked for to be on the same schedule for all their siblings. And then conversely, we have now gotten some feedback, additional feedback, that some families really decided that maybe that's not the best for them. For instance, if I have 4 children in my family, it might be easier for me to help 2 at a time and not all 4 the same day. So we look forward to a continued survey so we can get some more specific information, as Dr. Raveline pointed out earlier. We really want to research best practices. We're looking at different districts. We're looking at any research that's out there. Each of us has committed to bringing back to the group any research that we find. We're sharing status updates, again, with our smaller committees and with a larger committee. And then we're developing several scheduling options that we are going to put forth for consideration. I should ring a little bell. Okay, our subcommittees. Scenario A was the full distance learning with a learning management system. And this is what our 16-member committee practiced with, if you will, just really talk through what we needed to look at when we were looking at each of these scenarios. It was just a good practice run for us all. And then we each divided into either B, C, D, E, or F. And we had 1 administrator on each because we really wanted varied groups. And then each of the members just picked the one that they were most interested or they thought that they could be most helpful to. So scenario B was full distance learning with limited in-person support. So that would look like RTI or intervention days. C was hybrid models. So any variation of a model, whether it be 1 day a week, 2 days a week, 3 days a week, other than full return. Scenario D looked at hybrid models, but really targeting specific subgroups. So we're looking at our migrant population, our special ed population, our English learner population. And then E was different models. So we were open to looking at maybe elementary needs a different model than middle school, high school. So what would that look like? And then scenario F was a full return to school. And even though that we thought at first like this is going to be the easiest one, because we know we still have regulations, full return could look definitely different than what we are accustomed to last year. The subcommittees from there, again, there was 3 to 4 of us from the initial committee that broke into subcommittees. And we discussed before we went off into our subcommittees that when we chose extra people to join our committee because we wanted it to be as varied as possible, that we would really look at representatives from all 4 quadrants of town, that we were really trying to make sure that we were representing all stakeholder groups, that each of the grade level spans, meaning elementary, middle school, and high school, were represented well by either students, parents, and staff, and that each member really had an equal voice. So for example, in my subcommittee, I actually asked one of the teachers if she would take over as the lead, because I thought it would come across better from her than the assistant superintendent talking to the group. And so she really ran our meetings, took our notes, and invited people to our meetings and whatnot. Okay, check. Just so you understand what the subcommittee composition looked like, again, scenario A was our normal 16-member committee, because again, that's what we are practicing with, the full distance learning model. But then you'll see the breakdown there of each committee and who they comprised of. So mine again was D, hybrid for targeted groups. I'm just going to talk about that one a bit. We had 2 parents join our group, one with 2 elementary students, younger elementary, so newer to Visalia Unified. We had 1 student. This is a student that was at one of our high schools and involved in AP classes, because again, we were looking at all different kinds of demographics. We had 1 high school teacher on our subcommittee, 1 site secretary on our committee, myself. The other parent I failed to mention was a parent of EL students and has actually several students at home, 1 in elementary, 2 in elementary, a middle school, and a high school. So definitely had the gamut there. That parent was highly involved at several of the school sites. And so again, we were just trying to really look at getting a really varied group that represented lots of different areas. So we were getting feedback from many. Each of the subgroups chose their own people to add to them. And I just said to them, again, along with making sure that we were looking at different school sites, different quadrants of town, different subgroups, that you were making sure you had representation dependent on your scenario. So for instance, on E, elementary versus the secondary schedule, so having a different kind of schedule for elementary than high school, middle school, you can see that they had many more members on there because they wanted several representatives from each of those areas to really have a say, to make sure that they were taking all opinions into consideration. Okay, check. So we were looking at different scheduling options, and basically they fall into 3 groups. One is the full distance learning model, and as Dr. Raveling stated earlier, we do have parents and teachers, for that matter, that prefer a full distance learning model for a variety of reasons. So this is where students will be at home 5 days a week learning. This is not the packets that we ended the year with. Again, this is using a learning management system, such as what we're using now, Zoom. And a teacher is assigned to a class of kids. I put that in quotation marks there because, of course, it's different if it's an elementary class versus several different teachers for each of your classes that you're assigned to. And then hybrid models, which I put stars because I'll go into those a little bit more on the next slide. This is a combination of face-to-face instruction and at-home learning. So that could be 1 day a week face-to-face, 2 days a week face-to-face, 3 days a week, but the alternative days are at-home learning where students would be given work to do while they're at home. So that could be a combination of work to do on their own or using the learning management system or another online system to be able to work at home on their own. These also were looking at hybrid models on intervention day, usually 1 day a week, for a couple different reasons. One, we know that we still need to do some small group or one-on-one instruction. That might look like in high school labs for students, that they may need to have that in-person, another in-person time away from just, more of a lecture style. Or it could be minutes for our students that are involved in speech or special education, or it could be that a student just needs extra tutoring for math or any other subject because they just need, assistance in that area. So we allowed for those hybrid models to have an intervention day worked in there, and also to give teachers some time for extra planning because this is new to all of us. And then the last, a full return to school. So that's where students are learning 5 days a week and maybe 5 half days, it could be 5 full days. Again, we are looking at all different options But of course, this is pending county and state restrictions and mandates that we might be under. And then going into hybrid. So there are many, many options, and it seems each time we meet, we kind of have another hybrid of the hybrid, but they generally fall into these areas. So option A is a 25% of students on campus per day. That's breaking your total enrollment into 4 equal groups or as equal as possible. And this is where students would come to school 1 day per week for face-to-face instruction, and then they'd be at home for the other days. It says 3 to 4 because they could be coming to school a second day for that intervention day. So that would be the second day. Those students that didn't need intervention would just come 1 day a week. The teacher would be on campus 4 to 5 days a week. Again, 4 days for sure for each of the 25%. And then 1 day possibly for that intervention. I say possibly because intervention could be run like this via Zoom or whatever learning management system that we use. Option B is 50% of students on campus per day. So again, this is looking at 1 day face-to-face and then at-home learning again, the other 3 to 4. Teachers are on campus 2 to 3 days a week here. So teachers are on campus less. They're doing more at home, this type of learning, whether it's webinar or Zoom, where they can interact on the go. And then again, intervention 1 day per week. And then option C is 50% again. So your enrollment is split into 2 equal groups. And students would come 2 days a week in this model. And then at home learning 2 to 3 days a week. Teacher again would be on campus 4 to 5 days per week. And then last, again, several different modifications within this one, but also splitting your groups up into 50%. And this is more of a modified block. So students would be face-to-face 2 times per week. I put 2 asterisks there because on a block system, you would do, for instance, your A group would go on their day 1 to periods 1, 3, and 5. And on their second day, they would go to 2, 4, and 6 periods. And so even though they're there twice a week, they would be coming into contact with each teacher 1 time per week. Hence the modified block, because you're blocking your periods out into longer chunks. So instead of 2 shorter chunks that you see in B or C, you would have 1 longer chunk. So you would essentially be teaching 2 lessons per day per teacher per class. And then again, teachers, they're on campus 4 to 5 day weeks, 4 to 5 days per week, again, with an intervention day built into that schedule as well. So our next steps. So we have come a really long way. Today was an exciting day. We had, when we thought going into the meeting today that we had kind of exhausted all the different options, one of the groups came up with a new option that seemed very promising. It is sort of a block schedule, but it's where students would be going half days every day. So a morning group and an afternoon group with a large block in between those 2 groups for some cleaning, lunchtime, and some prep time for teachers, and would hopefully allow for, again, we haven't taken this one to the ground yet, but would hopefully allow enough time for our buses to get students that need to be bused or from school there. So we continue to look at all viable options, but our next steps from here are, we are going through that initial survey that closed on Sunday. Dr. Raveling shared a few stats from that one. It was sent to all parents and students grades 5th through 12th grade to complete. We are going to be submitting a new survey out to our students and our families, and that will be released close to or on Friday, June 26th. This is student ID dependent, and we're doing that on purpose because we know that families that have multiple students at home might have different needs for each student, and we really want to know what each student's needs are. And so the parent or student will have to input the student ID each time they fill out the survey. So if they had 4 students, they'd be filling out the survey 4 times if they choose to do so. So again, it would identify the needs of each of our students in our district. We'll review and determine a detailed plan with staff input. We have gathered names from each of our principals of 2 staff members and 2 parents that we can then go out to for our next layer, and then also communicate with the board what our final recommendations are basically, and then move forward and communicate to the community, because we know that parents, I'm a parent myself, we all want to know what school looks like next year for our students. And so we can make plans for how, we're getting them to and from school and how we can help them at home as well. Okay. Do you want to take questions on that part, or? Yes. Okay. Any questions before Dr. Raveley moves on?
Mrs. Naylor.
Yeah, hey, thank you for the presentation. With the survey that you're going to send out at the end of this week, is that going out to teachers? Because I am getting a feeling from quite a few teachers that they're not having their input and they would love to have a survey that comes back to the district and to the board.
Thank you, Mrs. Naylor. I should have mentioned that. Actually, I talked to Mr. Price today. We're meeting tomorrow for another round of negotiations to update our MOU on the school closure. And we discussed looking at some survey questions together that we could then send out to teachers to make sure it's meeting the needs of both VUTA's concerns as well as ours. We need to survey teachers. We need to know who is interested in teaching what kind of model. And again, many of our teachers are parents, right? And so they're a valuable member of this whole thing. So we really need their input as well. So that'll be a separate survey. And again, I'm hoping that we can pair with VUTA and get it out together. I think that'll encourage teachers to really give their input, and then we can look at it together.
And what is the timeline for that? I'm just concerned that, as we get closer to this and closer to school starting, is there a timeline and a deadline that we need to let parents and students and teachers know, hey, it's going to go out the end of this week, and then you have 2 weeks turnaround so that we can get it back to the board? What is that?
That's about the timeline that we've talked about, having those go out the end of this week and then giving them a 2-week window. We have said from the get-go we would wait till mid to, sort of later July before we made a final decision, because this is such a fluid situation. So even when we get all this input and have plans that follow the guidelines, we may have to shift gears. So we know that.
Okay.
And again, that's why we're looking at several different options. What we want to come up with is a viable option for full return, a viable option for a hybrid model. And so if mandates do change, right, then we already have a plan to move forward with, and we're not going back to the drawing board again.
And are those plans going to be on the survey so that you can get a feel for 50? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Dr. Vasquez.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I'm still really confused. So I want to put a scenario out for you, see if I understand this.
Sure.
And again, I'm just going to say, because you have 25%, 50%. We know from the last survey anyway, let's make a pretend scenario. 60% of students want to come back. So 40% are online, and we take those 60% and we have served 30 of them in our hybrid model on Mondays and Tuesdays. Again, this is just a scenario so we can follow.
Yes.
And then the other 30% on Thursdays and Fridays. So my question is, are we having 3 separate cohorts that the teacher is now teaching? Or on that Monday and Tuesday, is that there's this physically, they're just there, and the other 2 groups are online? And then on Thursday and Friday, those are just physically there, but it's still one class, except that sometimes they're physically on campus and sometimes they're online. Or do we have separate teachers that are doing the online, or that are doing that? And I know we don't know how many minutes people need to have. I know there's a lot of, but I don't think I fully grasp when you say hybrid, what that means and what that means for teachers. Are they teaching 3 different cohorts? So that if you could kind of tell me what that means when you guys say hybrid and that kind of stuff. Thank you.
Thank you for asking, because if you're unsure, I'm sure many others are unsure as well. So I appreciate you asking that question. So what we're hoping is that we have teachers, and we definitely know there are some out there, because we've heard from many that either have health issues that they would rather be home, right? or that they have kids and they rather teach at home. So what we're hoping is that we have enough teachers that are willing to teach that full distance learning model. And so they would be assigned a class of students, if you will, to teach on that full distance learning. So that would be their class. Then the rest of the students, so what you were saying is 40 are at home. So we would have enough teachers to teach those 40% of our students at home in classes, right? And then the 60% would be assigned just as they normally would to teachers. So if I'm a third grade teacher, I would have a class of third graders, and that class would be split into 2 different groups. So I would be teaching the same content to 2 different groups of students. So I would have half my class on Monday, Tuesday, I'm just saying, and half my class on Thursday, Friday. So I would basically teaching the same thing Monday, Tuesday as I do Thursday, Friday. Just
So
to
for those
half my
kids,
class
there's
on my
no online learning. The day they're just there 2 days, and the rest of the days there's no online. They're not watching the teacher while she's teaching anybody else. It's just 3 different cohorts of students, 3 different classes.
Yes, but I will say there are some models that we're looking at that teachers have said or parents have said, what if we videotaped? So if group A is in the classroom, B's are there watching, right? And being able to follow along with instruction, and then vice versa. So that way you are getting the benefit of listening to the teacher and seeing the instruction going on the whole time. There are pluses and there are negatives of that. It's hard to be on Zoom. I know we've all experienced that over this last few months. And if you're a teacher and you're teaching on and you're in front of the screen the whole time, it can be difficult, draining, and mentally, as well as for the students. So again, there's pluses and minuses for both of those ways. We've also looked at models where the students that are at home, if we did shortened days, they could all then join into a Zoom meeting at the end of the day for a check-in, questions, those kinds of things. So they would at least have contact with the teacher for some part of that day.
Okay, thank you. And then have you guys addressed the idea that if we do Monday, Tuesday, that Monday's a whole bunch of days off? And if that would balance out?
We have, so as our calendar looks right now, there's 1 Monday holiday in the first semester of school. So it doesn't look like it should be a problem.
And we all keep praying that by the end of that semester, miraculously, we're gonna, right, our problems are over. Thank you.
Exactly, you're welcome.
Ms. Gamoyen.
All right, so can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I want to go back to the survey again. 44% of the families are comfortable with students to return full-time. 17% are not. What happened to the other 39%?
They're in the middle, so that the 44% are most comfortable. They feel very confident sending their students back to school. The rest are somewhere in the middle. That survey was our initial sort of flyover, if you will, survey to get a broad paintbrush of what things look like. The next survey, we are going to ask the parents, again, by individual student, as Ms. Somavia said, to rank different models in order of their willingness to return their child to school in those different models.
Okay, what I would really like to see is a simple, like, yes, I would feel comfortable sending my kid back with precautions. And then the other question is, no, I want distance learning. This ranking thing to me is a little confusing. So let's just say if we did a survey like that and 44% of the families, or say 50% of the families said, hey, I want to send my kid back full time, could we possibly do that and then do the distance learning with the other children?
Yes, depending on the outcome of that, we have many folks who are not sure yet. I think they want to wait and see what the options are before they make that decision, and really to see the trajectory of the pandemic,
right?
If our cases continue to increase. Right. So I think the survey will be very simple.
Okay, because I think it would be really nice to know actually how many parents and children feel comfortable going back. Because if it's like 50%, we could manage that. And in talking with the board president at Fresno Unified, they ask parents that question, but they're also asking parents, and I'm going to throw this out, if you are not a working, both parents aren't working, or you're not a single parent, and there's a parent at home, would you be willing to keep your children at home and teach them with distance learning? They're also asking families, if at all possible, please ride your bike to school, walk to school so the buses aren't overloaded. And it seems that they're trying to utilize every possible space. So I don't want to totally say, rule that out. If we have, a small enough number of families that really need to send their kids to school every day, that would be really nice. And I also want to say thank you to Dr. Pinto, because I've spent sleepless nights about daycare, and that daycare would be available for everyone. So I want to thank you for that. So if we could just consider those things, that would be nice.
Yes, those are all under consideration.
Other board, Mr. Fulmer?
Okay, I was trying to listen, but I got lost on some of the corners. So does this distance learning model allow teachers to adjust curriculum to meet the needs of individual students? And teachers then, of course, some would need to contact individual students and parents sometimes for differentiation.
Yes.
And does it allow the principals to reach out, especially to parents?
Yes. Yes. So the 1 day of intervention that we have on all of our hybrid models is a full day of groups. So basically that will meet the needs. So we're looking at those groups anywhere from an AP student who needs extra support in their classes to, a special ed student who needs to meet in a small group with their teacher, to an EL student that needs more English language development time. So it could be any student needing any help. So that would be the differentiation you're talking about.
Well, you might have to adjust, what's expected from them.
Absolutely.
And our teacher's going to be able to do that. And again, the other part is our principal is going to be able to reach out to parents for various needs.
They are. Yes to both of those.
Mrs. Naylor?
Yeah, I just want to make sure and reiterate this one more time. Can we make sure that the survey is clear? And I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Ms. Gamoyan said. One question should say, are you comfortable sending your kids to school? So we have a real clear guide as to how many parents feel, I want my child in school. And then another question that says, I do not feel comfortable sending my kids to school. So we have, at the end of the survey, those who do is 40% or 50%. And those who don't, it's going to be 25 or 30%. I just feel like if we don't get those hard numbers on who does and who doesn't, then we can't even go to the next level. So I'm going to request that we have a survey that is very clear to parents on what they want to do so that we get the results that we want and the statistics that we want on making that decision.
And that's what we're doing. It's also going to be slugged by individual student ID, because we need to go deeper than that. We have to know how many students at each school in each grade level are parents comfortable sending their children to school or not, because it may vary by school site and by grade level and by classroom.
Mr. Fulmer?
I hate to be negative, but I don't care what the parents say in the survey. If their kid comes home sick, they're not going to be happy.
Ms. Gamoyan?
Bill, we're not saying, or Mr. Fulmer, we're not saying send everybody back to school. We're saying if there's a small enough number that they can distance, because they're going to go to school anyway with the hybrid model. So if they can distance, we have 50% of our community that wants to go to school, we can distance, we can utilize spaces. It's going to be the same thing. The other point I want to make is I want to make sure teachers feel safe, because quite honestly, there's a lot of teachers, and you mentioned this, Dr. Raveline, their health is fragile, their wives are fragile, there's new babies being born. And so we need to keep our staff safe as well, and just, which teachers are willing to come back, which aren't. Again, just a really simple question, because I want to protect our staff as well. And so I think, just that simple question: how many teachers are willing to go back? How many teachers feel they need to stay home? So, or do the distance learning. I'm not going to say stay home, but do the distance learning. So I just, to really simplify, so we can get a feel for how many really want to, that we get a feel for who feels comfortable going to school, who doesn't. And I totally, I just want to say, I get a lot of emails. I talk to a lot of people, and you know what? It's across the board. I want hybrid learning. I want to go to school. I want to stay home and do distance learning. So, I want to make sure, if at all possible, we can accommodate our families.
Mhm.
So anyway, okay.
Mr. Guerrero?
I'm in agreement with what Walter just said right now. And basically what everybody's saying is that if we can accommodate those that want to go to school, let's get them in school. Those that want the hybrid model or the full distance learning, let's do that. I think we're going to find that it is all across the board. I talked to some folks, they have relatives or family that have experienced COVID-19, and they don't want to send their kids to school. But I've talked to others that they want to send their kids to school. So there's going to be a combination here. The sooner we can make the decision, the better. My other concern is the concern to get our staff fully trained on this distant learning, get them all in training as possible. And, if we need to bring them in to do that training, then let's do it. Let's bring them in. I mean, hate to say this, but, we do have a reserve. And if we need to pay for a day of training for folks to come in, then let's get them in here to get trained, because we're losing time. School's around the corner. It's in August. So as quickly as we can move, we need to.
I can see a lot of difficulties in trying to figure out how to do instruction when you've got 3 different levels of students, the full-timers, the part-timers. How do you build curriculum around that? And then distance learning. I mean, I like the idea, and I would love to accommodate them in every way we can as well. But I may be wrong, but I think we got to be realistic about, really how we're going to do this. Anyway, that's my comment, my naive comments. So if there's no further comments on this at the time, let's move on to the rest of this presentation, because we're really eating up time.
We are. Future planning, want to let you know that we have put out an announcement. You all know this, but maybe not everyone in the public does, that we're going to start conditioning for extracurricular and co-curricular activities. We are waiting because CIF has not made a determination for athletic schedules, and they will not until later in July. But we are starting conditioning. There's some concern right now from our county health officer because of collegiate and professional sports teams that have returned to conditioning only and have had outbreaks of COVID. So we're going to be outdoors only, maintain 6 feet of social distancing, etc. And visitors such as parents won't be able to watch the conditioning because we need to keep the cohort small and keep the one coach with their 9 students so we can do any contact tracing if necessary. So we're trying to ease back into things for that. So further developments as we go along there. As our plans come together, and Ms. Somavia mentioned some of this, we continue to work closely with our 2 associations, VTA and CSCA. When there's change of working conditions, such as schedules, modifications, etc., then we get together and we come to a consensus and develop memorandums of understanding to move forward with that. We also have added an instructional committee. They will be responsible after this evening, and we move forward hopefully with some of the purchases we need to make to implement a robust distance learning program. Then that instructional committee will develop the training. It's going to have to be ongoing throughout the school year. Just like all of us, everybody is at a different comfort level and level of expertise with technology. So we need to give people time, just like we do with our students. We need to differentiate and give them time to play with the technology, practice with it, and use it. We do not expect everybody to be at 100% proficiency when schools opens at all. We're working with our principals. We'll be developing plans. They will, working with facilities on spacing furniture. If we have to remove some items, working with site staff, some items will not be easily disinfected by the germicidals when the students are not there. So we have to be cognizant of that. And we have to continue to plan for shutdowns if there's an outbreak. Coming to you next on the agenda, you will see that we have a learning management system presentation, communication video instruction presentation, English language arts and mathematics software presentation, as well as software presentations for other areas. And in all of those, we're going to ask the board for authority to move forward with purchasing and contracts. Previously covered, so I'll just briefly touch on it tonight, is our internet access. We have our first of 9 towers that has now gone up, and we're testing that. We're waiting for some parts to put the other 8 up, and we have our 4,000 hotspots on order. We're assured that they'll be here before school starts. We have our 27,000 Chromebooks all cataloged, ready for checkout. 7,000 more ordered through Dell, which are supposed to be here before school starts, so we can get those cataloged. And again, those will have touch screens for our TKK and grade 1 students. And so with that, that ends it tonight. Again, we have to be flexible. We don't know which direction the pandemic will take us, but as Ms. Somavia said, we have to plan for all scenarios so that we're ready and we're not scrambling as we were in March when we had to shut the schools down. With that, if there's any more questions, if not, then we would be moving on for public comment and then to our other agenda items that relate to this.
Well, I'd like to ask for public comment. Is there any on this item? While we're waiting, is there any other board member comments? Okay.
Caller, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes,
You're
go
on.
ahead.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
My name is Elizabeth Harris, and I am calling as part of your public comment regarding your plan for next school year. My kids are just getting older, and my family and I simply does not have the time for your learning curve. What can I tell a person who is looking at nationally established online learning programs versus staying enrolled at VUSD? Okay. Secondly, what is the plan for COVID testing for staff and students, if you have one? And lastly, what is the plan for teachers to engage students in online learning on days not in the classroom? Our concern is that it's possible that while the kids are in class on day 1, it'll be a review day. Day 2 will be, here's some new information, and then the days at home will be actual learning days. I guess that is all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Do you have comments on that, Dr. Ravelin?
No, that's all under development. The plans for distance learning, again, we're going to hear more about that in the subsequent presentations. And because each teacher would be able to customize their courses, it may look very different for each teacher depending on the subject matter. But the plan would be that when the students are in class with the teacher physically, that they would get to do the critical thinking, hands-on experiments, discussions, those things that you cannot do at home alone. And then the teacher would be assigning the work for the subsequent days when the students were not physically in school, but learning at home. That could take a variety of different directions. We're going to ask you to allow us to purchase a variety of software platforms so that students can work independently sometimes, a video conferencing software so they can work in small groups with their teachers sometimes while they're at home or with other students who are in the class. So there's a myriad of things that could occur.
She also had a comment about the teacher testing and I guess student testing where necessary. I know we do have a plan. If you could touch on that just briefly. Did you get that, Dr. Evelyn?
I did not, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're muted right now, even though you're coming through someone else's mic.
I didn't get that. We're having trouble with feedback so
yeah,
I had to have my sound off and I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
The caller had a comment or a question about how we were moving forward with testing of the teachers, and I'm assuming students as well. And I know we have that plan. So if you could just touch on that for a minute.
We do. Susie Skaden, our Director of Health Services for the school district, is working with doctors and nurses on her team to make sure that we follow the guidelines. We do have a symptom check sheet to look for symptoms. We're going to train staff and parents and students on what symptoms to look for. We also have, I think it's 4 now, of the quick scan thermometers that we'll be able to have to check students and staff. So as that team of medical experts develops the details, then we'll have that forthcoming in our final plans.
Okay, thank you. Do we have another caller?
Caller, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. My name is Brittany Christensen. I'm a VSD parent. And first, I just want to say thank you for the chance that we have to speak with you. And I appreciate the long and detailed presentation that Dr. Reveline gave. There are just a couple things that I want to address, some concerns. Number one being, since March, the district has failed to meet with our families and involve us in the decision-making process about school plans. And I recognize that there have been committees, but in large part, these committees do not represent the majority of our families and parents. Number two, as was stated earlier, most of us do want our kids back in school, and other districts nearby are giving their families options and choices and offering traditional school, or at least as close as possible to normal traditional school for those who want it. So why is that not being more strongly considered? And number three, students' learning should be the number one concern of our district. And we keep hearing that safety is the number one concern, but I want to know how is the district working to make sure that my kids and all the other kids in this district are learning every day? Because based on presentations and comments, it seems that USD is at times more concerned about following rules and avoiding risks than about the education side. Dr. Reveline, you continually stress that the CDE guidelines are laws and that we have no choice but to follow them. But we have other nearby districts and some within our own county that are opening back up again, or at least have plans to. If districts like Hanford or Fresno Unified, who has 70,000 students and is massive, can figure out how to navigate the state guidelines to get kids back in the classroom, then why can't we? They're giving their families a choice. I want to have that choice. My family wants to have that choice, and all VOSD families deserve to have that choice. So instead of saying we can't do this, I think that a better approach would be to say, how can we do this? And, since we've been a part of this district, which is going on 4 years now, which we've loved, we've had good experiences with VUSD. And one of the things that we like the most about it is that it encourages our students to be 21st century scholars, to be creative problem solvers, who adapt and are willing to take risks. So I would suggest that our district put that into practice and lead by example for our kids. Let's solve these problems creatively, let's adapt, let's take some risks. And then just in closing, I just want to say there are risks There are risks involved every time we leave our homes. There may be risks involved with opening back up again, but please be willing to trust your families to make that choice for ourselves. Let us worry about our children's safety and let you worry about their education, which is so needed at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you for your call. Did you want to touch on any of those, Dr. Ravelin? I think a lot of it was kind of pointed out here that we are looking at all options, and a couple of board members expressed their interest in having all of those models looked at as well. So I think we are doing that. All of this is new to every one of us. We're in very unprecedented times in the way we have to deal with our students. We would love to have them all back. It would certainly make our life a whole lot easier and probably cost us a lot less money than what all of these other versions are going to cost. But there are many other people who have different opinions about how we need to go back. And it's going to be very difficult to please them all, no matter what we do. But thank you for your comments. Do I have others who wish to speak?
We do. One moment, please. Caller, are you there?
I am.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so in the past with the pro youth, the kids have been required to stay until 6
Could you
p.m.
give us your name, please?
Is that still going to be a requirement for next year, or are they planning on alleviating or making these a little bit easier to work around?
Sorry, they asked if you could announce your name, please.
My name is Jake Lewis. My kids go to Golden Oak.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question. The proposal that Pro Youth has submitted to the California Department of Education has asked for a waiver on on staying until 6 o'clock. So it would allow the children to be dropped off in the morning and picked up at any time, and they would not have to wait until 6.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Do we have other callers?
We do. One moment, please. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Rebecca Abbott. I just had a question about in regards to the hybrid model or full learning, whichever. If a student, actually with the hybrid, if a student is sick or if we're being extra cautious, like if they have cold symptoms and they don't even have COVID, but with this going on, I imagine we're all going to be extra careful, whereas normally they would go to school if they had a little sniffle or something. What is the district going to do to accommodate if a student needs to stay home more times when they're only allowed at school, let's say twice a week, and they miss some of those important things? How can they catch up if they're not having as much contact with the teacher the other 3 days? Will there be, I guess I would ask, is there some way we can get some video lessons of the teacher actually teaching? Because I imagine there will be a lot of instances where students have to stay home because of illness, just to prevent the spreading, because we're going to have to be extra cautious with that. So yeah, just finding a way to keep them so they don't fall behind, because we know as students miss, it's harder to catch up. So how do we accommodate the kids that have to be absent? Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Do you have a comment? Hang on, Mr. Fulmer. Do you have a comment on that one, Dr. Ravelin or Mrs. Somavia?
I'm happy to take that. Caller, thank you for that. We have thought about that, and there can be several different options. One of our teachers brought up that they plan on recording all of their lessons. So in fact, if a student is absent, that they can just simply watch it at home and then call in during office hours for help or clarification on anything. And if we see a student's going to be out for a few days, they could always join in on a class that is working full distance learning. So they would be able to have instruction from a teacher at either their grade level or their content area.
Other public comments?
Are you ready for the next caller?
Yes. Go ahead.
Caller, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Katie Mays. I am a teacher in Visalia Unified, an elementary school teacher, and I also will have 3 of my children going to Cottonwood Creek this next year. And I'm glad that after school care has been addressed, and that covers the majority of the elementary sites. But my kids are at Cottonwood, and Cottonwood doesn't have a heart agreement anymore. They're now with the city of Visalia. So I'm just wondering if there is anything that they're going to do for those sites. I know we have a couple of elementary schools in Visalia that don't have heart anymore and are with the city. Is there something that we have an agreement with them, or have we made something else that'll be available for childcare? Obviously, if I'm working, my kids will have to go somewhere they're little, so.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. The plan that was submitted to the California Department of Education actually is open to all students in the district, regardless of grant requirements. So we have asked that all grant requirements be waived. So it would be open to your children and all children in the district.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
caller.
you. Next caller. Do we have another caller?
We do. One moment, please. Caller, go ahead.
Hi, this is Pamela Bueno, and I have 2 questions concerned. One is there a possibility that as parents, you could sign a release of liability form to the school district, letting our kids go back in school full time, releasing the school of liability in case our kids got sick? And 2, when will this be decided? Because I know I'm speaking for a large group of parents who want their kids in full time, and they are going to be, myself included, taking our kids out of Visalia Unified and going into a private school, which is going full time and having their sports programs in place. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Yes, we have been advised that waivers are not legal for this type of thing. We typically do waivers for sports and extracurricular, co-curricular activities, but for attending school, which is a constitutional right, a waiver wouldn't hold. And as was discussed earlier, we're going to put out a second survey, and then we hope by mid to 3rd week of July that we have a direction that we're going in. We're a little hesitant to proceed right now with the decision. Our committees still have more work to do. We have more parent input that we would like to gather, very specific questions, and things may change. So again, we have to be very flexible, as do all schools in the state.
Other comments? Public comments?
President Crabtree, at this moment, we have no more callers.
Very good. Thank you all very much for your calls. We'll move on to enclosure number. Does board members have some comments here? Mr. Fulmer? Mr. Fulmer, you're muted. Bill, you need to turn on your microphone.
I think we need to plan for those kids whose parents just feel they do not have the option of not going to work. And either we have something for those kids to do on campus, or they're going to be running the streets, and that's going to be a bad thing. That's all.
Thank you. Other board member comments? Very good. Good presentation. Thank you very much. Moving on to enclosure number 2, authorization for superintendent to proceed in the learning management system selection and execution of an agreement. Dr. Black, welcome. Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Hey, good evening, President Crabtree, board, and Superintendent Raveling. This is going to be the first of a set of presentations tonight. All of these are actually pretty closely related. They're related to the previous presentation as well. It's because, of course, the closure as a result of COVID-19. Before I actually get to the slides, what I'd like to do is, because they are all related, kind of front load some of the discussion. As was mentioned earlier, what we'll do for each of these is ask for your permission to kind of go forward and finalize some contracts with the various vendors that our committees have come up, identified as the ones they feel would be best serving the needs of our district. But before I go there, I want to try to explain maybe in a different way. It's already been discussed, but I want to kind of just explain this maybe in a different way. What this unique situation has kind of presented to us. It is, as everybody had said, something that is unprecedented, that we've not experienced this before. So this is all new learning for us. Now, that being said, because of COVID-19, the decisions the efforts that are being undertaken now, whether it's for scheduling, whether it's for the various platforms that we're going to discuss in the next few presentations, that's not necessarily related to COVID-19 in particular. I'm going to try to explain that. For instance, across the nation, we have many districts that have gone one-to-one in terms of the electronic device per student. They've done that for a certain reason, and that reason took place well before COVID-19. So there was some rationale that said, you know what, we need to better serve the needs of our kids and our families within our district. There are some schools that said that, or some districts that, as I've learned rather recently, that felt that one-to-one provides some challenges as well, and they've gone, albeit smaller districts, 2-to-1. They made that decision because of reasons and events that occurred locally to them. Okay, so it's not a matter of, okay, school closure, and then now we need to kind of investigate these options because of school closure. The reality is, those districts that have decided to go one-to-one well before any COVID option or event occurred, those districts are probably in a better position to address challenges should they come up, challenges like COVID-19. Okay, so when we make decisions, and one of the reasons we're trying to kind of look forward, the COVID opportunity gave us, the COVID event gave us the opportunity to kind of reflect on where within our own system that we could improve. Okay, the other example could be the LMS, because that's what this first presentation is going to be about. The LMS districts across the nation have invested in an LMS system, again, well before COVID-19. And it might have been because of regional challenges. Like, for instance, there might be districts that are hurricane prone, or that might be prone to tornadoes, and they have frequent shutdowns. So to be able to better address the needs of their families, they invested in things like an LMS. There might be districts that they've never shut down, but they have a high truancy rate where families, for some reason, aren't attending school. So to address the needs of their families, they've invested in products or platforms such as an LMS. Again,
Mr. Black?
Yes.
Dr. Black, LMS, Learning Management System.
Learning Management System, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for stopping me there. Yeah, so the reason for consideration of things like these next few presentations isn't necessarily directly related to COVID shutdowns, okay? And so I just want to try to clarify that a little bit. The other part that I want to clarify before I get into the slide is something that's a little bit more associated to the learning management system, is the size of our district. Now, because of the size of our district, we have a pretty broad spectrum of individuals in terms of readiness to change. We have individuals who they just live in that realm, that they just look forward to change because that's what gets them going. And that's great. But the reality is that on the other side of the spectrum, we have individuals in our district who are like, you know what? I've got a system that I've learned, I've refined over time, and I am comfortable with. And we need to make sure that we are considerate and compassionate at every end of the spectrum and between. So the other commonality, just keep in the back of your mind, please, for the next few presentations, that these things we want to kind of make sure that we are sensitive to, okay? And here's the one of the common questions I get. One of the common questions I get going through this process is, as an example, I'm a teacher. I am used to, I've learned how to use Google Classroom, and I learned how to use that effectively with Flipgrid, Seesaw, and Pear Deck. So that's what I'm comfortable with. And now I understand that the district is looking to move to a learning management system. Does that mean I have to change? Okay, so one of the things we want to be able to do is just kind of make sure that individuals will change when they're ready. Okay, that goes back to that sensitivity issue in terms of readiness. I've learned, let me get right into the presentation just in the interest of time. I've learned just recently that, here's an example of a learning that occurred to me. This is the Learning Council. This is something I had posted. It's publicly available. It's nothing that's highly research-based or anything like that, but this is a group that actually works with districts across the country that help support them in the instructional technology platforms, I guess. And they're interested in research as well. These are, what they did was about 18,000 districts across the country just last month because of the COVID-19 closures. They wanted to see what priorities have these districts established based on the money that they're spending. Where are they spending their money? That would kind of indicate the priorities. It's interesting to see that the learning management system and SIS and single sign-on systems, this is the primary area of investment, it seems. So I guess it goes to say that it's not uncommon to look at this area if it's not there already within a school district. Like I said, many districts already have a learning management system. We already have an SIS, student information system. We already have a single sign-on system. So we're a little bit ahead of the game. I would venture to say that the learning management system typically would come after that. So it is not unreasonable to have that consideration. The digital courses is the next highest in their survey anyways. And that would be things that you'll hear about in subsequent presentations tonight that deal with like English language arts, math, and some of the secondary type content areas. Now these tools down here, this has nothing to do with like English language arts and math. These would be things like Flipgrid, Seesaw, Pear Deck. So it's not unusual to use these type of things within a distant learning or a blended learning model. A question that through conversations that come up, there are three platforms that we considered. And I want to, I'll share those a little bit later, but it was interesting because it wasn't a matter of, okay, here are three, that's all we're going to look at. Here are three. Is there anything else that the committee feels like would warrant investigation? One of the telling feedbacks for me anyways, was some of the suggestions that were presented. And it would kind of indicate that maybe it's not very clear, we're all learning, me included, the difference between a content management system and a learning management system. A content management system does things that are very, very important for us. We can post different things on it, like a PDF or other type of documents. We can post like videos so that individuals can access those in a learning environment. What it doesn't do is they typically don't track progress. What a content management system does is that it may very well tell you when students turn assignments in, but it doesn't necessarily tell you like how long the student took on a particular assignment. They typically don't link to grade books, and they typically don't allow users to establish like learning units within the concepts that they're trying to teach. So most districts that are looking to move to a learning management system, they're looking for more robust opportunities, something that will give the user an opportunity not just to provide lessons to students, but perhaps to provide training opportunities or training modules at the school site. That's something that'll track participation, something that'll link to grade books. That gamification is a matter of motivation for students. The collaboration tools in a learning management system are typically more robust than that offered within a content management system. So that's just some of the background that might help clarify some of the differences between the two. So within our efforts in the learning management system, we try to maintain a balance in terms of role. I know this might not look too balanced because we have 10 teachers and 6 administrators at the site level. And so that's, I think, is fine because it's the teacher's voice that I feel is most important. We also try to maintain balance at the grade span level. So we have 5 individuals who represent the K6 or K8 span, 4 individuals at the middle school span, and we have 5 individuals at the comprehensive high schools and 2 alternative representations. Now, those who are on the committee probably notice that there are several individuals from the district. We serve as more of a facilitative role. Like, for instance, I'm one of those 11. Chuck Boone, Doug Cardoza, they're all part of that 11. Not everybody in the district level will kind of participate and kind of listen and learn, but that was their intent, is to kind of listen and learn and help answer any clarifying questions that the committee might have from a district perspective. Now, individuals from the district might also participate in the ranking system or rating system of the measuring device, but the final decision as far as what direction to go lies with the site, both teachers and administrators at the site. So what we can do is actually once we kind of complete the process, we can take a look and see what products did district level lean towards, what products did teachers lean towards, what products did site administration lean towards, and kind of look at it different perspectives to see if there's any differences, and then have discussions from that. Okay. One of the things we try to do also, or we asked, is that individuals on the committee reach out to parents to see if we can get parents to pipe in or log into one of these platforms to get their feedback. I don't know how challenging that might be, but we have asked for that. Okay. These are the 3 learning management systems, or LMSs, that we had considered. One is Empower Learning, and that is one of the reasons for considering that one is because it is a learning management system that one of our neighboring districts is using. And so just because of that, that generated some interest to be able to put that on the list. Schoology is a learning management system that has been recently purchased by PowerSchool. PowerSchool is our student information system. Canvas is another learning management system, and the final one that we have considered. This company actually is pretty well ingrained within educational establishments, probably more at colleges than districts, but districts and schools are using these. The Schoology and Canvas seem to be the 2 leading vendors when we're considering a learning management system. Now, when we're looking at these learning management systems, we have to decide or determine, okay, what factors are we going to use to review these systems? So let me explain a little bit, just briefly, how we came to those elements. That learning management systems have been reviewed and adopted and purchased across the districts for a number of years, well before COVID-19, as I said earlier. So what I did is that we took about 10 educational establishments, whether they're districts or universities, and took a look at their tool and seen which elements are they looking at. Took all those off their list and just dumped them in a separate list. Then I tried to categorize those. And so with the after categorizing, these are the 9 elements that we use. We'll use to kind of review each of the platforms. The ease of use, how easy is it to use? Can the user customize the system? How well does it manage the course content or courses in general? What's the reporting look like? How robust is the collaboration components, whether it's collaboration between students or collaboration between staff? What's the support record? We can do that by Schoology and Canvas in particular. These two have been out there for a while, so there's a lot of media and reviews that we can kind of look at to see how those kind of I don't know how they how supportive they were to their clients, their existing clients. Technical integration is important, and motivation. The motivation goes to, let me explain that one just briefly. One of the challenges is trying to keep kids engaged in the learning process, especially if they're doing it online. And so how well do these products or the platform, how well do they address efforts to try to keep kids motivated and staying with the learning trend there. Mobile access, we need to make sure that whatever platform we decide to go with, that it operates under multiple platforms, whether it's a phone or whether it's a desktop, a Macintosh or whatever it might be, Macintosh. So our hope is that the board will allow us to continue and make a final decision, and then work with the vendor that the committee has identified so that we can go ahead and take our next steps. And part of the next steps is a matter of messaging. That messaging would, I think I said this earlier, would be to kind of ensure that our teachers, users, we're trying to keep the stress level down and saying, hey, listen, if there's something that you're currently using, we can continue with that. Start with what you're comfortable with if that's where you need to be. Again, there's going to be individuals who are ready to jump and kind of learn as they go, and that's absolutely fine. And we want to support that as well. But ultimately, we want to be able to kind of make things easier for teachers. That might take some time. We also want to make things easier for families as well, given the current situation. So one of the things we'd like to make sure we do, and it doesn't matter which one of these presentations is that we're considering, that you're listening to, is that we want to kind of see if we can not look so much at the beginning of the school year and not focus there, because that would be stressful, but actually shift our focus to the end of the school year and kind of get an idea of where is it we want to be, what does it look like, and then take our time to get there. Okay, gradually grow as we go. The training considerations, if we can get an approval tonight on these various platforms, then we can work with the various vendors to start the training efforts. And the sooner we can reach out and make our final decisions, reach out, the sooner we can kind of start those early phases. Now, the idea, the consideration would be to establish an expert group first, and then use that expert group and the vendor to support the site in terms of training, as well as parents and families. So here's the idea of an expert group. TOSA, that using our internal individuals. Now, TOSA isn't necessarily going to be the expert. That person is actually partnered up with 2 or 3, and this idea actually came from a committee member, 2 or 3 individuals at a school site. That becomes the expert group. We use the vendors to be able to teach us the ins and outs of the product. That would be repeated for 1 TOSA over 3 schools. The reason I feel this is important is we have multiple initiatives, multiple platforms that are being presented. We have an LMS, we have video, we have content, English or math. And these things, we could overload teachers with learning. Saying, okay, today we're going to have a training on the LMS. Tomorrow we're going to have so we need to be very careful in that and not doing that. Structure like this, if we start with this expert group and we work with a vendor to get these individuals as expert as we possibly can. Then what we can do is use site guidance to say, okay, what's the next step? When does the site, working with site administration, site teachers, site A might be ready to go. Let's do the training right now. But site B might say, you know what, we need a little bit more time. So we need to have that input from the site. So as the first phase of this would be pretty vendor dependent, the next phases of the training would have to be site dependent with vendor input and support. That would be an idea as far as moving forward. Now, this isn't the training in its entirety because every vendor typically will have opportunities for teachers or parents to be able to log in and learn through modules that they've pre-established. So that should be something that's standing. This is just a matter of providing a support group, support structure as we move forward. Again, one of the other reasons for this is that this person would be a single point person for these schools. So it doesn't matter if they have questions about a learning management system, a video or whatever, they have one person to be able to go to. So that would be an idea of being able to provide a structure of support as we move forward. So that could be, that system could be repeated so that every school, K-12 actually, could be supported and at the same time not overload any one of these individuals to where it's unreasonable to lend that support. Okay.
Mr. Black, so your plan is to work with both vendors and then ultimately decide which one you want to go with and that you're going to come back to us with?
Okay,
or
so here's
planning on using both of them.
All right, so here is the hope. Here's the hope is that tonight, these are the vendors that we're right now, the committee is considering these two vendors, Schoology and Canvas.
Okay.
What I'm hoping with your approval is that we can go back to our committee, have some follow-up conversations. So here's what I can do is right now they've all but one individual have provided feedback on which direction they're leaning towards. If I take all those numbers, add them up, crunch them out, it says one or the other. It tells me, okay, it looks like the committee as a whole is leaning in this direction. So we can make that decision unilaterally. What I'm concerned about is that there are members on the committee who, yes, they've put in their input, but at the same time, they're like, you know what, I wish I had more information about this. I still have a couple of questions. So instead of rushing to a final decision, what I'm looking for approval for is to continue that discussion, which I think we can wrap up this week, and have the committee get all the information they need from these two vendors and then say, okay, this is the one we're going to go with.
Okay. Do we have Dr. Ratlin?
Yes, what we are asking for now, as Dr. Black is explaining, is authorization for Dr. Black and his committee to choose one of the products.
Yeah, I got
and that you would allow us to execute an agreement with the one they chose.
Okay. Do I have any public comment on this item?
You have no public comment.
So moved.
Board, do I have any board member comments? Ms. Gamoyen.
I love the idea that Dr. Black has with, you have one expert and they feed the other schools. But, if I was still teaching, I would want to start learning this tomorrow. And so what about the teachers that want to go? Can they be trained right away? And my other question is, already at some of the sites, they've got people in place that they're already helping their teachers with technology. Could we work with those people, like, the TOSA and then the site person, because some of the schools already have like communication with their staff, And they're talking about all these platforms. And could that person be picked maybe as the site person? Because they're already coordinating with their staff? Does
You're
that make
absolutely right. That totally makes sense, and that is actually with the intent. Because we want to make sure that we don't push people too fast too soon. But at the same time, as I explained that spectrum, we've got individuals and schools who just culturally, they're just ready to go. And they have the confidence to do that. And we want to be able to support that as well.
So
Dr. Vasquez?
Oh, could I have?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So they could be trained right away, like with the vendors, those ones that are ready to go.
Yeah, we've got a couple of steps that we need to make sure we kind of initiate. For instance, I need to make sure that once the decision is made, hopefully this week, that we have a presentation to all principals so they see exactly what they're looking at and what the system has. So they need to be able to have time to kind of process that. And then those principals who are ready, then we can kind of address that when the time comes. And in a very short period of time. I think your point is very important, is that we've got individuals who are ready to go right now, and we need to be able to support that.
Okay.
Dr. Vasquez,
Thank you. And so move for approval.
is there any other board member comments?
Joy.
Mrs. Naylor.
Yeah, the cost difference between the two, Dr. Black, is there a big significant cost to each one of these?
No, believe it or not, when we look at various systems, and this holds true for some the other platforms, like we're talking about the ELA thing, and we kind of break it down, it's pretty much a wash between the two different systems.
Can you back up a couple of slides on your presentation? There was where you said the TOSA, and then they go to the site, and then it had kind of had like midsummer.
Oh, yeah, that is something I just put on, or this one right here. Yeah, so this is Mrs. Gamoyan is kind of ideally we start tomorrow. Obviously we can't do that, right? Yeah. Because we have to make that decision. But the idea is as ASAP, as soon as we can, we actually get this going. And at the same time, we're getting feedback from sites that says, okay, we're ready to go right now. All right, so we're not going to try to close the door to anybody. We're going to involve the sites, administration, and say, okay, when do you feel like you're ready? Who is ready, who's not ready? We're going to have that.
On that school lead 1 and 2,
School
is
lead.
that the school site decides who that is, or is that you guys saying these are the people?
Oh, no. It would have to be the school site, because the school site would know who they're, these are the trailblazers, right?
Guys, yes, the teachers that do
Yeah.
well with.
And I put 1 or 2 here, but based on some of the feedback from the committee, it's probably going to be 2 or 3.
Okay.
All right.
Again, you want to rush, but at the same time, we got to get this going and get teachers trained. And I agree with Walter. There are teachers that are ready to go tomorrow. And so the sooner you can make a decision, the better off we are. So thank you.
Yes, and your support tonight would be would help us move in that direction.
All right, I have a motion by Dr. Vasquez and a second by Mr. Fulmer. Trustee Guerrero, you're.
Yeah, let's proceed.
Trustee Foster,
Move forward.
Trustee Fulmer. Trustee Gamoyan. I already had Bill's second, so I'm assuming he hasn't changed his mind. Trustee Gamoyan,
Yes.
Trustee Naylor,
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez is a
Yes.
yes. All right, it's unanimous. There you go, Mr. Black. Get to work and make it good.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you. I know you will. All right, moving on to the next enclosure. I get back to that page. Enclosure number 3, authorization for superintendent to execute an agreement with Zoom for video conferencing software. Enclosure 3, Kristen Corliss.
Good evening, Superintendent Raveline and Visalia Unified Board. Can I just check to make sure that you can see the screen?
We can. I
Okay.
can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. I come to you guys tonight requesting authorization for the superintendent to execute an agreement for video conferencing software. So I will be discussing video conferencing software with you this evening. As we've discussed many times tonight, we know these are uncertain times we're navigating through, and opportunities for us to get better at what we do. In an effort to move forward, and fall semester is going to look very different than our spring semester did here in VUSD. We have to address the digital divide for students and staff and do the best that we can to make distance learning more efficient and effective for all of our students and families. So with that said, we do have a committee that focused on the video conferencing software that was composed of 10 teachers from Visalia Unified, 5 site administrators, and 2 district administrators. As you'll see presented this evening, we did have teachers from all different grade spans, including elementary, middle, high school, and we had 1 teacher serving from our alternative ed sites. As Mr. Black just reviewed, there are different components that come into, that really efficient and effective distance learning model. One of those things is the learning management system that Phil Black just discussed. At the bottom, you'll see also part of the core 4 is that online data storage. So the good news is this is something that we already have, right? This is the Google Drive, a place where all of our students can store their work. One of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight is the video conferencing piece. When we look at this, there's 2 different parts of video conferencing that is incredibly important: synchronous video and asynchronous video. Now, those are really big words. And just so that we're all clear on kind of what they mean, asynchronous video is that 2-way video conferencing where you're able to interact. For example, a student is able to interact with the teacher in real time. Student asks a question, teacher is able to right away respond to that question. Asynchronous video is broadcasting. So it's maybe a teacher videotaping a lesson and sharing it with a group of students. However, you don't have that interaction in real time. So these are the 4 things. Tonight, I'm going to be focusing on the synchronous and asynchronous video. Our committee reviewed 2 separate video conferencing software pieces. We looked at Zoom and we also considered Google Meet. As part of our committee, there was a set of criteria around that we wanted to kind of, look at each software and see which video conferencing software met the needs of our students. As many of you are aware, we did not have a video conferencing software piece available during the spring semester due to concerns related to student safety, security, privacy, and also it really was not a familiar instructional tool for our teachers. So here you will see all of the things that our committee reviewed as we looked at both systems. We looked at student safety, security, and privacy, easy access for students and families, mute audio capabilities, being able to mute the student or the teacher as required for instruction, share screen capabilities, whiteboard integration, giving teachers instructional tools, annotation tools, the ability for our teachers to control the student video, and also integrating checks for understandings where teachers, if they were working with a small group of students, would be able to, at midpoint or multiple points during their lesson, check for the understanding of their students. So once again, these are the criteria that the committee reviewed when really looking at Zoom and Google Meet to decide which would be a better fit for our students here in Visalia Unified. At this time, I am coming to you tonight with a recommendation from this committee. I do want to let you know that at this committee level, we have not engaged parents at this point because the initial situation or the initial decision was really, we reviewed it from the technical aspects, the instructional aspects, safety, security, and privacy. However, I will talk a little bit later about how we will engage our parents related to this video conferencing software platform. At this time, the committee is bringing to you a recommendation to move forward with Zoom as a video conferencing software common to all VUSD students. Members of our committee from the teaching perspective seem to feel that Zoom has more features. There are better classroom management capabilities in this system. They offer stable video conferencing for distance learning. The tools on the Zoom platform appear more user-friendly for our students and for our families, and the ability to utilize a waiting room and locking a meeting for safety of our students and families was integral to the decision of the committee. I do want the committee to be aware that recently Google Meet has provided updates that they plan to roll out mid-July. Those eventually will come with a cost on September 30th. Even knowing and looking at some of the proposed updates for Google Meet, the committee still feels that Zoom is the best choice for our students in Visalia Unified. Of course, as we move forward, once we receive direction from the board, there are things we need to review and look at related to implementation. That will be looking at training considerations, using a badging system for our teachers, creating experts throughout our districts in the area of Zoom, of course, training our site staff, and really, really important to this, as we've talked a little bit, a few board members have touched on it this evening, is really to look at that training of our parents and our families for Zoom. This is also an opportunity for us to look at the digital divide that we know exists within our district and to address that digital divide for staff and students. The next steps for our group as we move forward is once we receive direction from the board, the committee will reach out for parent feedback. We're going to ask for feedback from parents related to Zoom regarding the ease of use. Is it something they're comfortable with or familiar with? Do they have concerns or questions related to privacy and security? All of that feedback that we receive from parents will help drive the aspects of training and addressing the digital divide. It will help guide us in the way that we will train our teachers, train our families, and train our students moving forward. Once again, tonight, I am requesting authorization for Superintendent Raveline to execute an agreement with Zoom. And at this time, I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Do I have any public comment? Excuse me, let me get public comment first. Is there any public comment?
We have no public comment at this moment.
Board member comments? I think I saw Mrs. Naylor's hand go up first.
Yeah, just real quick, Kristen. I know that Zoom, that's a great platform, but it doesn't work for everybody, in my understanding. Like the VAPA department might not suit it as well as something else. Do teachers have a latitude to use something else that is better for that program, or do they all have to use the Zoom?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we have found out, Joy, during our investigation of this stuff is that families have said over and over, especially for families with students in multiple levels, how important it is to have a common video conferencing software that you use throughout the district primarily, so that, for example, they know how to support their third and sixth and high school student. However, with that said, Joy, Zoom will actually primarily be of importance for us for that synchronous video, right? Which may not be initial direct instruction. That might be intervention. It might be follow-up with individual students or small groups of students. Mm-hmm. There are other tools that we will be adding to our arsenal per se in terms of moving forward with instruction in addition to Zoom.
Oh, good. Okay. And then does this integrate with the learning management system, the Schoology and Canvas?
I think that they're connected. I'm not totally sure on that, but I do know that it actually works. We had many teachers on our committee that have used all of those and said that this worked much better for them as a teacher than, for example, Google Meet.
Okay, I move that we move forward unless there's other board comment.
Dr. Vasquez?
I second that.
I have a motion by Mrs. Naylor, a second by Dr. Vasquez. Trustee Guerrero, your vote?
Yeah.
Trustee Foster?
Yes.
Trustee Fulmer? Trustee Fulmer, where are you? Okay, I got a thumbs up on his. Trustee Gamoyan?
Yes.
Trustee Naylor?
Yes.
And Trustee Vasquez?
Yes.
All right, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, enclosure number 4, authorization for superintendent to proceed in the English language arts and math education software and execute an agreement. Mr. Billingsley.
Good evening, President Crabtree, board members, and Superintendent Raveline. I am Jim Billingsley, Curriculum Coordinator, and I'm here tonight to bring you our committee's work with the ELA and math educational software. As we heard earlier tonight, that going into the fall, there are different scenarios that students and families will be facing, and we were looking for software that students will be able to use when they are either in school or at home. And so we were tasked with looking at different pieces of software that will meet all of those different standards. And so let me go ahead and get started. Okay, so our committee was made up of teachers, site administrators, and district administration. And what we did within that committee is we came up with lots of different software applications that could possibly be used in the classrooms. And what we ended up with were 13 different pieces of software that have been used across the district in recent years or have been mentioned as a possible use for either math or ELA. So looking at these 13 different programs, if we really wanted to evaluate these in depth, this would take a long time. And so we developed a rubric, a kind of a grading scale to take these programs and take it down to a more manageable number in order to properly evaluate to find out which of these programs would meet our needs of our students and our families and our teachers. So what we did is we took different criteria. And the first criteria that we used to evaluate this was having some kind of a screening tool or a diagnostic. What this is a test, and this would be given to students. And what it does is it evaluates their strengths and their weaknesses within the areas of math and ELA. So this diagnostic would then figure out where they're at. And then from there, the next criteria that we looked at was that independent learning. So it took the students kind of knowing what they knew well and what they didn't know well and create an individualized learning pathway, if you will, in order to either fill gaps where they may be behind because we missed since March, or maybe they can accelerate based on their diagnostic. So it's an independent learning. So this can be done either in the classroom, or really what this is for is to help supplement what teachers do in their classroom. So when students are at home and not in the classroom, this software will enable students to have that access to ELA and math content so that they do not fall behind while at home and not in the classroom. So once we had that independent learning, another criteria we looked at was an instructional component. It's very important that there was instruction involved with these software applications. A lot of the times what we found with some of these was that it was really what we call drill and kill, where it was just a lot of repeated problems over and over again. And we know that instructionally is not sound. And so what we did is we wanted to find software that provided instruction for students. And that was very important. Next was that there was some kind of formative assessment for each lesson. So really what this is doing is they're testing the students after they complete a lesson, whether they understood the material or not. If they did understand it, they would then move them along to different lessons. If they did not, they would go back and then reteach. So this is what we kind of really call an adaptive kind of format. So it adapts to student learning. So it's independent and they're able to do this at home. And our final criteria was looking at grade span and content coverage. What we really want to do is we want to make sure that we have a piece of software that can span multiple grades and multiple content areas in order to make it easy on families at home so that they have one piece application to go to. And so that they don't have to worry about trying to log into different applications. They have one place to go for all of their students. So we're trying to find that ease of use. So we took these different criteria of those original 13. We looked at each one of those and evaluated them. And if they were missing one or more of those different components, those were removed from the list. And as we started working through that list, we ended up with 3 that we went to further evaluation. And those programs that are being considered, one is Freckle. This was produced by Renaissance. This is used from we use Star Math and Star Reading within our district, and that's part of that program. That was one. Another one is iReady by Curriculum Associates. They hit all of the pieces. And the last one that we were able to look at was iExcel. So these 3 programs met all of those criteria from those original 13, and we moved those forward with the committee. The committee then brought in each one of the vendors. So each vendor presented to our committee and demonstrated and provided demos of all of their accounts so that we're able to really look at it and go in depth and do an in-depth study of each one of these different components. And at this point right now, we are finalizing those decisions. We have not made a final decision at this point. I'm expecting that in the next day or two, we should be able to make a final decision on which software component that we would want to go to. And then tonight we're asking if we could go ahead and have the superintendent execute an agreement with one of these programs if it is approved. So
do I have any public comments?
We have no public comment.
Thank you. Board member comments.
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Dr. Vasquez and a second by Ms. Gamoyen. Is there any further discussion? Your vote, Mr. Guerrero.
Yes.
Trustee Foster.
Yes.
Trustee Fulmer.
Yes.
Trustee Gamoyen.
Yes.
Trustee Naylor.
Yes.
And Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
It is unanimously approved. Thank you, Mr. Billingsley.
Great, thank you very much.
Go to work and make it good.
Will do.
You know, it's very interesting how we're voting finally, in my opinion, on software to educate students, which has been mentioned many times that we should have been there a long time ago, as opposed to buying books and reviewing, you know, pounds and pounds and pounds of books. So I think it's a great thing. I think it's a good move forward. We are going to run into some snags along the way, without a doubt. I experienced it when I was working through many software programs and hardware programs. There are always challenges, but I'm sure you can meet them. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to enclosure number 5, authorization for superintendent to execute agreement with iCulture, DBQ, online, flex curriculum, and smart music. And that would be Mr. Pariseau, Dr. Pariseau.
Good evening. It's been a lot of information thrown at you guys. I hope you can see the PowerPoint.
Yes.
That's up there. You know, some of the big projects had to do with the LMS system and that the platform on which you know, distant learning can happen, and also the video interactions and the way the instructions delivered. Those are some of the big important areas in the sense of how that content's being delivered. And then Mr. Billingsley just went over math and English. And so mine, the subcommittee I was overseeing was gearing toward other subjects, predominantly in the secondary realm. So we're looking at mostly 7 through grades 12, and we're looking at other subject areas. And so we're looking at social science, world language, visual performing arts, and career technical education predominantly. And so we had a committee. It was formed predominantly of teachers of those various content areas. And the way we kind of formed our committee is, as we initially set up our meetings and met with the teachers, then I kind of put the onus on them to farm out and to further reach in to their collaborative teams within the high schools and middle schools and speak with their colleagues in their content areas. And so the scope of what we're looking at is looking at supplemental material that's digital in nature, that helps those different curriculum areas and helps those students when they're not necessarily in front of a teacher using the LMS or Zoom and things of that sort. But a lot of these things that you'll see that they decided to go with are things that can be utilized regardless if we're 100% online, if we're in a modified teaching environment, or if we're traditional. And so all these things can be utilized, and some of the teachers have already been utilizing these individually. And so the committee looked for existing holes we had in our curriculum, like what digital resources do they wish they had. We also looked at what digital resources did they currently have and have access to, and if those are things we want to continue with or continue to utilize. And so as we go through each content area quickly, you'll be able to see some of those areas. So the first one is world language. And so world language started the process last year, and going into next year are looking to adopt to the California World Language Standards and Frameworks, which are new, and also engage in a future textbook adoption. And so the current textbook that they have does have digital resources that students have access through Clever. And so that's something that some of the teachers utilize, some don't. So one area that they felt was a priority recommendation is a web-based program called iCulture. And iCulture is through the Carnegie Learning Language System, and it deals with Spanish and French languages. And it gives students access to travel videos, day in the life videos, news articles in those world languages. It targets their age group, it's school and age appropriate. There's follow-up activities and quizzes and questioning. There's resources that enhance instruction. Also includes topics of interest to young adults and teens. And so for that, for a district-wide license cost, you could see it there. It's pretty reasonable. And so that is what world languages and the world language teachers recommended, was the purchase of iCulture. When it comes to social science, they went through a textbook adoption a couple years ago, and they currently are under licensed with digital resources through their current textbooks. And so there's a lot of digital resources there that are available to them, and it's good through 2025-26. The area that the social science teachers really recommended was access to something that we still have in our district, but more in paper format, and that was the DBQ project or DBQ Online. So that's document-based question is what DBQ stands for. And it's a company that provides realia, real, graphics, pictures, primary source documentation, and it provides writing and inquiry-based social science learning. And so they have this available in a digital format, and the social science teachers were very heavily think that this would be a great tool for them to use outside the scope of their direct instruction or the LMS system. And there is professional development videos that provide training on how to utilize the curriculum. They also have access to the print version of the library, even with the digital access. And it integrates in with Google Apps, with Canvas, Schoology, and Clever, which are systems that we're looking at moving forward on getting. The next was science. This is the one we got off pretty cheap, actually. They've started also the process of reviewing and implementing the next generation science standards and frameworks. And we're looking at textbook adoption going into next year. And so we purchased this past year, going into next year, STEM Scopes, which provides comprehensive digital resources, supplemental print materials, hands-on exploration labs and kits. And so this is something that we already have. And so there's no additional cost for that. And we have licenses through that through the end of this coming year. And then we'll probably do a textbook adoption and reevaluate what type of resources are available to our science courses. There are two other digital sources that are available to us for free that science teachers also will utilize, and that is CK12, which is online science textbooks in all content areas and grade levels, and PhET interactive simulations, which gives web-based simulations in all the different sciences, physics, chemistry, earth science, biology, and even math. The next is career technical education, and this is something we also already currently have licenses to, and that's ICEB, which provides digital curriculum, student access to that digital curriculum. It also provides certification opportunities and assessments for students. And so we have that current license that goes through December 2020, and we plan to renew that in December going into next year. And that would be purchased with CT grant funds. And it covers most of our different industry sectors: ag, construction, transportation, health science, law, public safety, things of that sort. The other one, which is new, which is actually on the consent agenda item coming up, is a program called NEPRIS. And one of the biggest challenges we've had within CT courses is our work-based learning and work-based learning continuum, with students not being able to go to industry partners directly for us to be limiting in scope of what type of activities we have. NEPRIS provides basically digital interaction with industry partners that teachers are also engaged with. And it gives us all sorts of flexibility and freedom to do different types of virtual tours. There's pre-recorded videos of all sorts of different industry sectors and big corporations in different industries. And the teachers are able to control that and log in with students and take advantage of that. It's also something we're planning to utilize with some of our work-based learning activities next year. If we're not able to do them in person, then we plan to do them through NEPRIS. And Teresa Polich, one of our work-based learning coordinators, has piloted this program with a few students and teachers just this past month, and they were very excited about it. The next was visual performing arts, and this is one where the teachers expressed a lot of concern with the need for teacher and student interaction and feedback. And they were more concerned with the LMS and the video platforms because they feel that with visual performing arts, it's a skill, whether it's vocal, instrumental, or dance or art, and there's technique involved. And for kids to make progress, they need interaction with the instructor, the teacher. And that's something that they were very concerned about. But within the scope of this subcommittee, the recommendations, in particular with visual arts, was the Art School of Education University called Flex K-12, which is web-based curriculum, which focuses on different areas within the art world with technique and different things of that sort. And so it interacts with our LMS system, which one we purchase. And it's something that the art teachers were excited about and some already utilize. When it also, with visual arts, they were talking about the need to create material bags. So this isn't digital, but if students are taking art, whether it's 2D or 3D art, they would need to probably develop purchase materials and create little bags for students when they do come on campus to be able to take those home. So they have the charcoal, paper, colored pencils, and things of that sort to help them be successful and actually practice that art. And so that was one concern they had. And they said a lot of those materials can be purchased with site budgets that they already have. The next area is still VAPA here. And regarding band, orchestra, and choir, what they recommend was a digital system called smartmusic.com. And it's a web-based suite that has educational tools and support for efficient practice. There's method books, ensemble titles, all sorts of things for them to utilize, and is a great resource for them in the absence of them being able to interact with the students in person. And then for drama and dance, there's a website that is free, but it has a lot of really cool industry professionals and instructors that go over different dance strategy and experiences, and also different drama and lessons on how to act in certain situations and things of that sort. And that's called artfulschools.com. And so what we are recommending is that you authorize the superintendent to execute the agreements with these programs. In particular, because we do have some we've already purchased in this past year or so. So it's mostly focused on world language with iCulture, US or history, social science with DBQ Online, Flex Curriculum, and Smart Music. So those are the areas that we are looking to pursue in this other category. Any questions?
It was a good presentation. Thank you, Mr. Pariseau. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Can I move to accept?
Second.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Do I have any discussion? Mr. Fulmer.
I'm sorry, don't let a school teacher look at your paperwork. I support the program, but if you look on the first page, you misspelled planned.
It happens.
Thank you, teacher.
Yes.
Okay,
I'll
I
check
had a motion by Mrs. Naylor and a second by Mr. Foster, I believe. And Trustee Guerrero,
Yes.
Mr. Foster,
Yes.
Trustee Fulmer,
Yes.
Trustee Gamoyen,
Yes.
Trustee Naylor,
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
Thank you. That means it's unanimous. Now you can go to work on that one, Mr. Pariseau. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to public comment at this time. General public comment on any school-related topic may be heard at this time. Comments will be heard through our telephone call-in system. The call-in number is 559-931-8500. We will take the calls in the order they are received. Pursuant to board policy, the board may limit individual comments to no more than 3 minutes and individual topics to 20 minutes. Please begin your comments by stating your first and last name. Under state law, matters presented under this item cannot be discussed or acted upon by the board at this time. If you have a specific question that you would like answered, please call the VUSD call center between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, except the week of June 29th. Call center hours will be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The call center number is 559-730-7300. For tonight's general public comment, the call-in number is 559-931-8500. The board asks that any public comment on any item listed on tonight's agenda be addressed at the time the item comes up for discussion by the board. Do we have any public comment?
We do not have any public comment at this moment.
If anybody shows up, give us a holler. We'll leave it open for 5 minutes or so. In the meantime, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there any items that board members would like to pull? Do I have a motion for the agenda?
To pull at closure 36.
Enclosure 36. Do I have a motion for the remainder?
So moved.
Second.
Do I have a second? I have a first by Mr. Guerrero, a second by Dr. Vasquez. Mr. Guerrero, your vote is a yes. Mr.
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Fulmer?
Yes.
Ms. Gamoyan?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
And Ms. Vasquez?
Yes.
Dr. Vasquez? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, now we're moving on. That was fast. Fastest thing all night. Visalia Unified School District Local Control Account.
Oh, 36.
I pulled.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Guerrero.
Yeah, I just want to know what type of out clause we have on this this agreement here. And my concern is that we're going to be putting students or working with these organizations where the COVID-19 outbreaks took place or they're still active. Westwood Gardens, Redwood Springs, and Linwood Meadows, those sites. You know, I'm just concerned with the pandemic virus being out there and what type of out clause we have on our contract.
So board members, Board President Crabtree and board members, we do not have to fulfill any type of contract with these. This is an annual agreement that we do with these entities in case we need their space. During this year, when we closed school down, we withdrew all of our students from any of these that we were working with, and we've been able to do other simulations for our students to complete CNA, LVN, and such training. So these are placeholders. It is highly competitive to get our students into CNA rotations. Should we be able to do so sometime during the school year next year. COS and other communities have programs for CNA, and so we put this in so we have a spot just in case, but we're under no obligation to utilize them all, if any of them. And frequently we don't utilize them all, even though we sign agreements each year with them.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have a motion?
So
Motion
moved.
by Mr. Guerrero, second by Mr. Fulmer. All in, well, Trustee Guerrero, Trustee Foster,
Yes.
Trustee Fulmer, Trustee Gamoyan,
Yes.
Trustee Naylor,
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez.
Yes.
All right, now we will move on to enclosure number 41, Visalia Unified School District's Local Control Accountability Plan, COVID-19 Operations Written Report. Mr. Sullivan.
Good evening, Board President. My video won't work, Chuck. You've got me blocked.
I know how that goes.
Okay, good evening, Board President. My name is Jim Sullivan. I'm the administrator, and I'm here to share with you our Visalia Unified COVID plan. Let me see if I can share my screen with you.
Did you pay your electric bill?
I did, but all the lights are off. I think my kids went to bed. Left me in the dark. I'm here to share with you our COVID written plan. The idea of this is it's a review of what we have done since we were closed. It's part of also is just so you know, it's going to include in your packet, it included what each of the charter schools did as well. Since charter schools have to have a LCAP, they also needed this plan approved as well. Our plan is part of our LCAP because if you remember is that they have changed the timeline for our LCAP. We kind of went over this back in September or back in May, that in September, we did our stakeholders engagement. We were all ready in April to start our rough draft, and we were going to then start our community survey, and we we're going to ask you to approve it in June. Well, then when COVID hit, they changed our timeline, where this timeline is we have the 2021 budget approval that Nathan will be asking for you in next. But in the meantime, we have to have a written report that is done first, that is approved by you. And I'm going to review the written report real quickly. And then in December, you will actually then approve our LCAP plan. So part of the changes to during closure, we have to talk about communication, our services, and planning for next year. Communication, obviously, you could see that we updated our website almost daily or hourly in some places and sometimes. We really started looking at procedures, how we're going to address the needs of students. We started doing food distribution. Learning changed drastically, as well as planning for next year. We began planning of what our graduation is going to look like in June, and also as our opening for next year that you've been seeing, and you've been approved stuff earlier tonight. So for low income students, we had packets as well as online. We distributed packets if students didn't have access to online learning. We had teacher support making out phone calls to students to support those students. We provided services again with basic supplies and materials, and then we did some community outreach. Whereas if we made phone calls to parents or students and they needed additional support, we would connect them to outside community agencies. Our English learners, we added packets that were language-based. We made weekly phone calls in their primary language if it was Spanish. And then again, we also referred to outside agencies as needed. Our special education students, we delivered packets specifically that was based on the IEP of those students. We made, special ed teachers made phone calls and worked with those students on at least a weekly basis, sometimes more. And we also did, again, community outreach. So for continuing delivery of distant learning, preschool did distance learning, elementary, middle school, and high school. We know that at preschool, they did packets they delivered, and the teachers made phone calls just as elementary and middle school. In high school, we did, they had packets, and we had changed our learning for like Sequoia so that we could ensure they can graduate. And we also offered on our website the web-based learning. We provided meals. Part of our plan was obtaining the meals. If you remember, Dr. Aveline would share with you we had a difficult time getting meals at some points because we were, our meal count jumped significantly for a few weeks, and we had to order 2 weeks in advance. And then we had to also distribute. If you remember, we distributed by bus as well as by school sites. So supervision of students during school time. One of the recommendations is that we provide, or we have helps parents get access to daycare during the time we were closed. So if families actually called, we had lists of open providers that they could go to if they needed to have childcare during while we were closed. So our plan is, if you remember, is to do the LCAP in the articulation for year one was going to be 2021 all the way to 23. That has now changed. In December, we will do a 2021 LCAP, and then we will do the LCAP for the 21-24 school year in June. So I just wanted to remind you of that because I don't want you to forget that this report is in replace of our LCAP for this year until December when we ask you to approve our 2021 LCAP. So tonight I'm asking you to approve this written report. It's one of those things we have to do for CDE. In addition, I just want to remind you that on top of the written report that is approved, when Nathan presents the supplemental concentration funds for LCAP is in the budget for next year, as well as then the LCAP will be approved in December. And that is the end of my report. Do you have any questions?
Is there any public comments? We'll leave that open while we wait for calls if there are any. Any board member comments? There are none. I have a motion by Dr. Vasquez, second by Mr. Fulmer. Trustee Guerrero, your vote?
Yes.
Trustee
Yes.
Foster?
Yes.
Mr. Fulmer?
Yes.
Trustee Gamoyen?
Yes.
Trustee Naylor?
Yes.
And Trustee Vasquez?
Yes.
All right, it's unanimous. Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you.
And if any questions come up, we'll call you back out.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. I will be opening a public hearing for enclosure number 42. This is the second read for the VUSD budget adoption. Mr. Hernandez.
Good evening, President
Thank you.
Crabtree and members of the board and Dr. Aveline. Nathan.
By the way, congratulations on your promotion, sir.
Well, I was going to start with a word of thanks and thanks for the vote of confidence and your trust in the work that the business services folks do, supporting our schools and our students, and appreciate the opportunity. So
you've always had
that we're going to share some good news.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's why we keep you around.
Well, I can't guarantee that it's always going to be good. So there have been just some late-breaking developments in the state budget process over the last 24 hours. And so I'll share some of the information that we've learned. Some of that will actually change what Mr. Sullivan just presented in terms of the LCAP, because we have a new version of the LCAP coming, calling it version 2.0. So let me share my screen here in the presentation. And I am joined again by Miss Jessica Villarreal, our administrator of, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing my screen here. Okay. I'm joined also by Miss Jessica Villarreal, our budget director, and she's going to join me in the presentation. We are going to talk a little bit about the state budget and the changes that have occurred here in the last 24 hours. And then we'll talk more about the district's budget and the impact on the district's budget. And so this budget's based on the May revision. So the governor issued his May revision, which included cuts to education. It included some one-time funding, deferrals, and some cuts to other programs, categorical programs. But just yesterday, the governor announced that there was a compromise deal between the legislature and the governor. The legislature had adopted a budget a few days ago that was very different from the governor's May revision. And so they were still in negotiations. The governor had not signed that budget. And the compromise agreement is what's listed here on the screen. And so We don't have all of the details yet, but as it's starting to come out, the trailer bills have been released, and so we're getting additional information pretty much hourly. The compromise agreement continues the current funding levels, so there isn't an increase in funding, no cost of living adjustment, but there are no cuts to our LCFF funding for next year.
Wow.
In this compromise. And so what that does is that restores the $23 million in reductions that we were anticipating for next year into our general fund unrestricted budget. There is language that is being proposed that would prevent layoffs, because without the COLA, there was this August layoff window that could open, but there will be language that prevents that for certificated teaching staff, as well as certain classified positions, custodial, nutritional services, and transportation. But it doesn't protect all classified management or certificated management positions.
But does that put us in a position where we might be back there down the road?
Make those reductions. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll cover that.
Okay.
There is increased CARES Act funding. So the state has their own allocation of CARES Act funding, and in the May revision, they proposed $4 billion. The compromise is for $5 billion, and it spreads that out so that all districts will receive some portion of that funding based on special ed students, based on their LCFF funding model, and then additional funding to districts that receive the concentration grant funding. So that is more than what we had anticipated there. We don't have those allocation amounts yet from the state. We have some estimates from some of our management groups. And then because this budget doesn't have those cuts, it increases the amount of the deferrals if the federal government does not provide additional funding. So they had passed the HEROES Act out of one house, but it did not get through the Senate. So there isn't additional federal funding coming, but there's some assumption that it will, and if it doesn't, they will increase the deferrals for next school year. And so what that means is we will absolutely have to borrow to make our payroll, to pay our vendors, because these deferrals go from February all the way through November. So it is a much larger amount than what was originally proposed. There's a hold harmless provision in the compromise for our attendance. And so we would not be docked if we had attendance losses for next year. And then there is this learning continuity and attendance plan, or I'm not sure why they couldn't find different words, but it's the LCAP 2.0. And this is a plan that we would have to adopt by September 30th. The state will have a template for this in August, and we will just share how we're addressing all of these issues through the new funding that's being allocated to schools. And so this will address how we're managing distance learning, how we're grading student work, and if it's remote, how that work translates to the instructional minutes and attendance. So they're pushing some of that back on to districts. Again, this is all still pretty early. As we get more information, we'll share it. We'll continue to update the board along the way. So at this point, we can go through the rest of the presentation and the budget that we're going to adopt. This will be our adopted budget. It's a second reading. None of these changes have been incorporated, so we still show a deficit of $9.6 million on the unrestricted side of the budget. But overall, a surplus. The only changes that we've incorporated in the adopted budget were changes from the negotiated agreement with the UTA. So we went from a deficit of 1.3 million to a surplus of 1.3 million. But again, this doesn't have all of the latest changes with the state budget. Our hope is to come back to the board at the end of July. Hopefully we've got all of the allocations set and we can rebuild our budget based on this, the new information. But we will have a balanced budget for 2020-21. It is based on some optimistic assumptions by the state. And so it may be that in 21-22, we're back looking at budget reductions. And so we need to be cautious as we build this budget to make sure that, you know, anything that we restore into the budget, we can turn around and make reductions again next year if we have to. And then again, lots of one-time federal funds included in this budget from the state. So I will stop there and answer any questions on the state budget, or if you'd like for us to proceed through, we'll go through the rest of the PowerPoint presentation for the adopted budget.
We'll ask for public comment after you finish, but if any board members have any comments at this time, we'll take them. Ms. Gamoyan.
Okay, I just want to say it out loud. We will have a balanced budget next year when you add in all that stuff. Is that right?
That's correct.
Hallelujah.
Anyone else want to cheer this one? Mrs. Naylor?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Nathan. I really appreciate it. We needed some good news, so I appreciate the good news and congratulations. And are we moving on this tonight? Approving it?
We will be. Is anyone else?
I was going to move to approve.
No, you can't yet. He's not finished.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just happy with the good news.
Yeah, I know. Don't get too excited though. Anyone else? All right, go ahead. I'm assuming Mrs. Villarreal has a presentation.
Well, that's the question, is we can go through the rest of this report. There hasn't been any changes except for the changes with the VUTA.
Okay.
If you'd like for us to continue to go through the report,
well,
we can just.
Is that Jessica standing on the books up there in the corner? I'm just wondering. Okay, I do have a motion by Mrs. Naylor. Somebody want to second that motion? To move on? I have a second by Dr. Vasquez. And I will ask for the vote. Trustee Gamoy, or Trustee Guerrero.
Yes.
Trustee Foster.
Yes.
Trustee Fulmer. Give me your thumbs up. Trustee Fulmer, yes, I have a thumbs up. Trustee Naylor, yes.
Yes.
And Trustee Vasquez is a yes.
You forgot me.
How did I do that?
I don't know,
but
I vote yes.
My apologies. Very good. There you go. Thank you, guys. You did a great job when you come in with news like that.
Thank you.
Don't disappoint us later. Thanks, you guys. All right, now close that public hearing and move on to enclosure number 43. Substantiation of need for ending fund balance in excess of minimum requirement reserves. Again, Mr. Hernandez.
I can't quite go away yet.
That's for sure.
So I'm going to share this screen again. Nope, not that one. How about that? Perfect. Okay, so this is an annual item that we bring to the board to share the ending fund balance of the district's general fund. In the 14-15 state budget process, there were some changes to ed code. That change resulted in the reserve cap, and then a requirement that we have a review of our ending balances at a public meeting. And so this meets that requirement. And this is what the actual report looks like that we submit with our budget. It shows our ending fund balance in the general fund of $49.4 million. Our required reserve for economic uncertainties of 3% at 10 million, and then any designations of fund balance that we have in excess of our required reserve. And so we do have designations for the boiler chiller project at Golden West. We have a designation for pension trust account that is held outside of the general fund. We also have a reservation of our LCAP, supplemental concentration fund balances. And then the remainder is to meet the board's goal of having a 15% reserve. This year we are at 10%, but we have, and then again, this is before any of this changes in the state budget, which will likely increase this, because as our deficit decreases, our ending balances increase as a result. And so the total substantiated need is the $38.8 million. And that kind of says exactly what I just shared. And so with that, I'll open it up to any questions from the board.
Do we have any public comment? Please butt in if you do. And I'll go to the board so we can keep this moving. Is there any board comments? Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I have a motion. I have a motion by Dr. Vasquez, a second by Mr. Guerrero. Mr. Guerrero's vote is a yes. Mr. Foster.
Yes.
Trustee Fulmer. Trustee Gamoyen.
Yes.
And that was a yes from Mr. Fulmer with a thumbs up. Trustee Naylor
Yes.
and Trustee Vasquez, it's unanimous. All right, don't run away. Resolution to approve the expenditure of education protection account funds in accordance with the budget and fiscal year 2020-2021. Enclosure number 41, Mr. Hernandez.
This last budget-related item is another annual item that we bring to the board to share how we plan to spend the funds that we receive from the education protection account. The education protection account was created when Prop 30 and Prop 55 were passed. The additional sales and income tax measures that really started the whole LCFF, the local control funding formula changes. And so annually we have to share how we're spending those funds. The funds are actually a part of our LCFF funding model. So it's just a portion of the funding that makes up that total funding with state aid and property taxes. And so we designate these funds towards teacher salaries and benefits. None of the funds can be used towards administrator salaries. And so when we set these funds aside, they pay for just our regular teacher salaries and benefits. And that's
That mean
all
you're
I have
done?
for that.
That mean you're done?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Do I have any public comment I'll call for? Is there any board member comments?
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Guerrero, a second by Dr. Vasquez. Your vote, Mr. Guerrero, is a yes. Mr. Foster? Mr. Fulmer?
Yes,
I got a yes from him.
I pushed the right button finally.
Ms. Gamoyen?
Yes.
Mr. Naylor, or Mrs. Naylor, excuse me.
Okay, it's late. Yes.
Getting late.
And that makes it unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you.
All right, we'll call for board member reports at this time. Trustee Guerrero, oh, well, I'll make you next to the last. Mr. Foster?
Yes, I want to say that this meeting has been probably one of the most productive meetings. I realize it's been a time of uncertainty, but this meeting, I think, has alleviated a lot of fears in the community. It shows that government is responsive, that that our administrators are working really hard to alleviate those concerns. And I appreciate what they've done. The fall will not be the same as the spring. It will be better. And I think tonight we showed that it will be. And that's what government is for. Thank you.
Mr. Fulmer?
Well, I just wanted to report that I went to the city council meeting and they had an open meeting to the public with this proper spacing and it worked just fine. So I think we can do the same thing. And that's all. Oh,
Thank
let me
you.
throw in one more thing. You can't see it too easily, but I'm wearing my bragging shirt because it says U.S. Air Force Academy Grandpa.
Has he graduated yet?
Oh, he wishes.
Mrs. Naylor.
Yeah, I'd like to, again, thank everyone for their hard work. It's a good meeting tonight. I do want to, again, reiterate that one of the parents said tonight, hey, trust us, we know what's good for our kids. We educate. I really want to see school open, and we need those surveys to make that decision. I do want to request that we add another board meeting in July to get the results of the survey so that we can move forward. There's just too long of a time between now and the end of July. So if we could please, and if I don't know if we have to vote on that, but I would like to have another board meeting mid-July to discuss opening a school.
So you're asking for a board meeting just to discuss opening school?
I am in the survey results because I think waiting to the end of July is too late.
Okay, we hear you. Dr. Vasquez.
Sorry, I was having trouble getting off of mute. I would like to double that what Joy said. I really want to acknowledge the staff, all the people that sat on committees, and again, our finance department, that whole thing of everybody having to cut those budgets and put them together and refine. And I know that's just been a lot of work. We had our partner organizations, our CSEA and our food and stuff. I mean, people taking a day less, and the managers and all that stuff is really appreciated. A lot of work went into our new budget. So I just really wanted to say thank you for that. And then a special shout out, of course, to finance. Congratulations there, Mr. Hernandez and Dr. Villarreal. Thank you again for all your hard work. And again, we got a extra special top rating, which is going to save the taxpayers a lot of money. We kind of put it in the consent agenda and it went, but that's a big deal. You guys always make us look good, and each one of us sleeps better at night because we know you guys know what you're doing. And I just wanted to again do a shout out. I also wanted to thank the parents, even if some of us personally may not agree with your perspective, because everybody's got a perspective. We do hear you. We do hear you, and we do want what's best for your kids, and we do want to educate your kids, but we also want to keep them safe, and we also, by law, have to follow the rules. And personally, I want to live a lot longer, and I'm just hearing again and again that it's pretty nasty when you get it. And I just got some new research from somebody that's been working on COVID that found that kids, even though they're asymptomatic, are the biggest carriers. And by opening schools, we really put ourselves at risk. So there's a reason why the health department is waiting. So just to say, everything's moving quickly. Yes, we hear you. And yes, we want what's best for your kids. And yes, we want them to be educated. What else do I have here? I have three requests actually. The first one is, I don't know if you want to call it a board meeting, a study session, a workshop, but I too would like Member Naylor, another meeting so that we can be updated, so that we can see the changes, so that we can do that. And apparently we researched, I did talk to Dr. Ravelin about this and a few other people, and I'm requesting it. Member Naylor has requested it. So all we need is 2 more other board members to confirm. And then Mr. President Crabtree can put it on the agenda and we can make that happen. So I'm asking right now for confirmation for 2 other board members to stand up and say, yes, we would like to have another meeting. I'm thinking Mr. Guerrero has asked for one like 3 or 4 times, but I'm wondering if there's one other person that would also.
I think you have your 4 because I've been watching Mr. Foster bobbing his head yes for the last 5 minutes too. So Dr. Ravelin, if you will set that up for us, please.
Okay. The other thing I would like to request is that the forums continue. The superintendent forums we used to have on the third Thursday of the month, so that parents do feel that they have a place to talk. We'll have to do it on Zoom, but we used to do it before. So it's always the board president and the superintendent, and that way the public feels like they have a place to go to just talk about these things, to ask questions. And may I say, we did much better job of that this time, and I think you could tell because there were less people. Hopefully they weren't having trouble getting through.
I don't
I
understand
also,
what you're talking about.
there's a thing called Superintendent's Forum that on the third Thursday of the month usually, right? Walter, you know what I'm talking about, that there's an open forum where we can do it on Zoom, where the superintendent's there and the board president is there. I know we haven't had it in a while. And then some people drop by and other people don't, and we can bring up stuff and we talk about it. So I'm requesting that we do that. I don't know, we've done it before. I don't know if we need again a consensus
Well,
or
that was
not,
the
but that's my board
education
request.
forum. That was
Sorry?
the ed forum, right? Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
know what it's called, but it was called it was a forum at 4 o'clock. Yeah, rarely we'd get people, and then we'd get a bunch of people, and then we'd get nobody. So again, I don't know if we need if you need 4 people for that one as well, Dr. Reveline, or if that's something that can happen. My third request is, I understand that the teachers did a survey yesterday, the day before. I would also love to see that. So Mr. Price, if you're there, I'd love to be able to read a copy of that. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Ms. Gamoyan.
Lucia, you're talking about the Ed Forum, and I think I'm on that committee. John's not on that committee. I think it was me. Joy, were you on that? Yeah. And I think it was an open spot.
I thought it was the board president that always did that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, no. So yeah, I think Joy and I were on that, and then there was an open spot. So, well, I also want to thank the staff for all this planning, all these platforms. Things will be better. I would like to say that we're not going to have a learning curve, like the one of our parents phoned in about, but we're going to have a learning curve. Yeah, so I just hope that, we're patient with each other. I think the staff has done a fantastic job planning for next year. I know a lot of parents and students were disappointed when we closed school, the way school progressed, but that will not be the same. I just want to make that very clear. Things are going to be very different. So I just want to really thank the staff for that. I also went to a little graduation today. There was one of our students at Golden West whose father had passed, and she didn't get to go to graduation. And the Golden West staff decorated again the front of the school. There was teachers there. Mr. Fragoso, she walked down, received her diploma from Mr. Fragoso. And I think maybe those pictures will be on in our social media. I was just crying. It was just beautiful. And so, yeah, I just want to give a shout out to that Golden West staff for doing that. So good meeting.
Mr. Guerrero.
Yeah, I agree with Joy Naylor. She was asking for another meeting in July. If we could include on the agenda for that a review of the budget changes as they just recently negotiated a compromise, and see what some of the other things that are going to come out of that. I'd also like to move ahead with the in-person board meetings. I think there's a plan to maybe have those at Ridgeview Middle School, and if we could proceed with that. I'd like to also thank the parents for all their input. There's a lot of emails, and I think all the board members read those emails, and I know I do, and there's a lot of input going on, and there's some very good suggestions, some that we can work on, some that we can't. But one item that I'd like to bring up, which is a board matter, and that is that we have another, and we discussed this at our annual retreat in January, but to have a second retreat within at least by September, and so we can discuss some more issues amongst ourselves, and it's pretty common for organizations to have more than one retreat, or they have one retreat and they have an annual meeting and the board is able to meet as a whole. But I'd like to see us move forward with that, because we did discuss it during January when we met. And the last thing I'd like to say is that for a while now, there's been several of us, this is prior to the superintendent and even prior to her predecessor, that when we were told we're getting into technology, buying Chromebooks and all this other stuff, we were asking for more digital things. And, because you saw kids carrying big old backpacks with all these textbooks that weighed a ton, and we're asking for more digital platforms. And apparently that's been going on for a while. And I think, Ms. Kamonian is right. We're going to have a learning curve. We're going to have some bumps still, but we're also moving ahead with the schools of the future, because that's what it's going to be, and whatever that design comes to, I'm really anxious to see the surveys, and seeing what we can put together. That's it for my report.
And I guess that leaves me. And the only thing I have to say is I'm in favor of meeting publicly if we can put something together again as well. I'd actually like to ask if the other board members have considered that and are interested in getting back out into the public with our meetings instead of on Zoom. By a show of hands, you are in favor?
Yeah. Could I just say, I'm ambivalent. I have no problem doing it, but I really like this Zoom format.
So you can sit there and okay.
Did Mr. Foster give his report?
Yeah, he gave what? Didn't you?
Yeah, I gave a report.
Yeah, I thought so.
I'm like Mr.
No, you can't do two.
Yeah, do.
No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
I was talking about the in-person board meetings. I'm sort of like with Mr. Fulmer, although I don't have any fears of personally contracting COVID, but I would wear a shield maybe, but I do have some reservations.
I think we all probably have a couple, even Mr. Fulmer. Dr. Ravelin, you have a report for us?
Just a quick one. As we look into, and we are looking at utilizing Ridgeview Middle School for the technology and space and that sort of thing for in-person board meetings, as I've mentioned to you, we would ensure some safety procedures and only allow 6-foot spacing and have a good block between individuals and the microphone and such. But we would need to also run that by our public health officer and make sure that she approves it as well. So we're working on that plan, and we'll submit something to her as soon as we pull that together. And I'll be working with Mr. Boone on that. And then just on the graduation, Trustee Gamoyan, that was a wonderful experience today. And we do have pictures that are going to be on social media, as well as KC24, who, if you recall, highlighted and showed all of our graduation videos on their station. They had something on the news tonight at 5, and then their partner station 47 had something on at 6. We will try to get those links and post those on our social media as well. That's it.
Okay, we're at a point where we would generally be releasing staff. So if there's any sitting around other than Doug and Dee Dee, they can go home or turn off their Zooms. And is there anyone that would like to take a 5-minute break? We might just make the 10:30 deadline. Okay, so we'll take 5. No, we're not done yet. What was going on over there, Mr. Fulmer?
What, who, where? I went out of the room. TV was on.
Oh, didn't sound like you went far enough out.
If we actually get out on time, I'll be shocked.
Well, don't talk so much. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and start. Inclusion number 45, recommended reinstatements.
Moved.
I have a motion by Mrs. Naylor, a second by Mr. Fulmer. Are there any no's on this item? Do I have all yes? Show me your All right, that's unanimous vote on reinstatements. All right, I'm going to open another public hearing. This is on enclosure number 46. This is the second read of resolution adopting level 2 residential and commercial developer fees based on the 2020 school facilities needs analysis. And we have Axel Kondo back with us.
Okay. So good evening, Board President Crabtree, Superintendent Raveline, members of the board, and members of the public. So today I'm coming back to you with the resolution to adopt the level 2 residential fees and commercial developer fees. So the resolution has been provided to you, and it's based on the school facility need analysis prepared by Capital Public Finance Group that I've presented at the last board meeting on June 9th. So today the resolution is provided, and I'm basically requesting you for a vote to adopt the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion by Dr. Vasquez, second by Mr. Fulmer. And Mr. Guerrero, what's your vote?
Yes.
Mr. Foster?
Yes.
Sorry, I have to get a new pen. Mr. Fulmer?
Yes.
Mrs. Naylor?
Yes.
And we have Ms. Vasquez and Ms. Gamoyan.
Yes.
And that makes it unanimous because my vote is yes as well, as all of them have been. Thank you, Axel. That was a great presentation.
Thank you very much.
And this closes the public hearing. All right, we're moving on to enclosure number 47. Board member attendance at California School Board Association CSBA Annual Conference in December. Dr. Raveline.
Mr. Boone is going to put up the slide. As I think most of you know, the regular conference days are December 3 through 5, and there's a pre-conference day, December 2nd, which is the delegate assembly meeting. This year, the CSBA conference is to be held in Anaheim, California. The cost to attend, and there you can see it on the screen now, for early bird registration, which saves us some money if folks are interested in going in person, it's about $580 a person plus the lodging, which is $800 a person approximately, and other travel related expenses such as meals and travel is about $410 per person. So that gives us about $1,800 a person that we would normally spend if we registered early. For 7 board members, that's $12,530. Again, that's an approximate cost at this time. Because of the COVID situation, they are offering a virtual registration fee. They have an early bird price for that too, $399. And of course, there would be no travel related expenses. So that would be the total cost per person. And you can see for all the board members, that is a significant reduction, just about a quarter of the cost. So considering it's in Anaheim, I know it's a ways off. Southern California is a hot spot of COVID at the time, at this current time. I need some direction, but it might be prudent for looking at saving money and not traveling to an area with a lot of people from around the state. Just things for you to consider. This is an action item, so I'm going to need to get some direction from you on attendance and how that attendance might look if you decide to go as a board.
Trustee Vasquez, you had your hand up first.
Yes, I am a delegate, as you all well know, and I did talk to some of the staff at CSBA, and apparently they haven't made the decision whether the delegate assembly will have a virtual meeting or not on that other day. So I'll need to go, and I don't mind taking care of my own lodging. So that wouldn't be, I don't need $800 for lodging. It would be nice if I could get some help with the mileage, but I'll find my own lodging, and I'm gonna need to go. If they do offer a virtual, I have no trouble doing the virtual instead of the other, instead of going in person. I'd prefer it. But we have made that commitment, and I am delegate.
Okay, so then we don't really
So,
necessarily need to vote on that right now. Just, we can come back and give you the travel later. But as long as the registration is covered because you're delegate, right?
No, I think we pay for the registration too, don't we, Delia? I think we usually pay for registration.
Oh,
We
okay.
just don't pay any extra for that other day, but, and they don't usually charge us when I go, May is the other meeting date. But it's just the 580.
Well,
The
if
580 is correct.
okay, so I'd make a motion that we pay that as long as delegate assembly does form down in Anaheim. Do I have a second?
Second.
I think Walter wanted to say something. She's been waving her hand for the last couple of seconds.
I want to say something.
About
Okay.
Lucia?
No, I think Lucia should go. I think the rest of us should not. I don't even think we should pay the $399.
Well, let me finish this vote and then make that comment.
Okay.
So I had a motion by myself and a second by Mr. Guerrero. Can I get a thumbs up for those who approve that?
What
do we approve of?
This is a motion to
For
pay for Lucia for attendance at delegate assembly, assuming that they have a delegate assembly.
In other words, if I have to go in person, we'll go in person. If I don't have to go in person, then I'll do it
Right.
virtually.
Okay, so that vote is unanimous. All right, now Ms. Gamoyan.
Okay, so we have asked teachers to take a furlough day. We have asked them to pay some of their insurance. I don't think any of us should even do the virtual, nor should we go there. So whatever you guys decide, that's fine, but I'm declining. I am not going to do the virtual, nor will I do the go there to do my part in saving money for this budget.
Well, I think something that's been mentioned before is we will likely have, or maybe we won't. I think we'll have one new board member, right? At least one, depending on how that goes. If we have new board members, then they should maybe get something, whether it's virtually or not, because as Joy and Walton know, you have that board member orientation, new board member orientation, and you get a little taste of the Masters in Governance as well.
President Crabtree, may I say something?
Yes, you may.
So the new board member orientation would add an additional $375. If we did an early bird registration, unfortunately, we will not know.
Right.
So late registration would be $425. So you're looking at an additional fee.
Well, I would think that we would just do it virtually.
I
And
really think if with the potential for new board members, they should go.
At this moment, they are not offering virtual for the pre-conference, which is December 2nd.
that's right. That's the day before.
They
Well,
might, but at this time, I called and they are not offering it.
Mr. Guerrero, you have a comment?
Yeah, I think if the balance of the board does the virtual, we'll be doing the cost savings that Walt is talking about, because a lot of our expenses are in the travel and then in the meals and all that other stuff, so, if we do virtual, we're not going to pay as much as we normally pay. It's a substantial reduction. What is that? How much less will we pay if we do it all virtual?
Isn't it
Yeah.
$10,000?
$10,000.
How much?
9,000.
About $10,000. Yeah.
That's a big reduction. The other thing is that it's important for us to get that information that's passed on at CSBA. I have no problems making reductions on the board. I think we all agreed that we're gonna pay for our own meals. we're not gonna be doing what we're doing before. And you know, those are things that we've already decided in terms of cutting. But I think if we can save $10,000 by doing it virtual, I'm in favor of that. You know, but I really feel that if we get a new board member, that new board member is gonna need this information. I mean, you know, our recently elected board members haven't even had masters in governance. You know, and I think, you know, we don't want to cut your nose off in spite of your face. You know, we need to get as much information to the new people as possible.
Can I have a show of hands to see who's interested in participating in it virtually this year? All right, I have 2.
Virtual.
2 for virtual.
Can you have a show of hands of who doesn't want to go or do it or give it up?
Well, that would be the other 5.
Okay, that's why I want to make sure that everyone knows. If you don't vote for
No,
virtual,
that would only be
that means you don't want to go.
I would participate if it included new board members. So whoever wants to go virtually, I think we should allow them to do that. And for those who don't have to. Dr. Ravelin.
Are you making a motion?
President Crabtree, I'm wondering, Delia Smart says that we have a little more time. And if we're going to have a July 14th special meeting, would you all like some time to mull it over and we put it back on the agenda for that meeting?
I don't think it's necessary. I think we have the answers that we're looking for. Of course, with me, it's still not going to give me the answer that I'm looking for because I don't know how the new board member situation will be. And there's certainly no reason, since Juan wants to participate, that he couldn't deal with the new board members. He certainly has the background to do that. So let's take it from there. Does that give you an answer?
Let's just.
Or do you want to wait till the 14th to hear it
Do you need
again?
a motion?
I don't think we need a motion. I think we can just raise the hands what we want to do.
I don't even know what the question is at this point.
Did you?
I think that I'll make a motion that those who want to go on the board, they do it virtually except for Dr. Vasquez.
And the new board, if there's a new board.
And any new board member.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mrs. Naylor for those who want to go to CSBA virtually, they can go, and I have a second by Mr. Guerrero. All in favor of that option? Is there any no's? All are in favor. Thank you. In favor of that motion. That seemed a little clunky, but this is Zoom. All right, moving on. Resolution to establish salary for the district managers and confidential employees effective July 1st, 2020. Didi Somavia.
Good evening again, board members, Dr. Aveline. I bring to you tonight the resolution to establish the salary schedules for district managers and confidential employees. As you can tell, the salary schedule reflects no cost of living adjustment and a reduction of 1 workday for all employees. Again, this is for district managers and confidential employees.
Is there any discussion by the board?
Move to approve.
I have a motion by Mr. Fulmer. I'll make the second. All in favor? Yes, that's good. Stick your thumb up. That is a unanimous vote. Thank you. Moving on. Employment agreements, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources Development, and Assistant Superintendent, Educational Services, and resolution to establish salary for the Assistant Superintendents effective July 1st, 2020. Dee Dee Somavia.
And I'm back again. A little awkward, this one, but I'm here to bring to you the contracts for both assistant superintendent. So that's assistant superintendent of human resources and assistant superintendent for educational services. I'm just going to highlight what's inside the contract. There's no significant changes to either of the contracts from the one presented for this school year that is just about to end. The term for this contract is July 1st through June 30th, 2023. It's a 3-year contract. Both of the employees would be placed at step 2 as this is going into year 2 in the positions. The contract reflects no cost of living increase. It does have both employees eligible for full health care coverage. Again, that's a total compensation package similar to all other certificated management. It allows for accrual of sick leave, 1 per month. It also allows for 22 days of vacation accrual. It comes with a life insurance policy of $125,000. It allows the employee to belong to one professional organization, such as AXA, so the district would pay the dues for one organization. There's an auto allowance of $100 per month, and retiree benefits if the employee meets those guidelines, which is 15 years within the district and at least 55 years of age.
Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion to approve? I have a motion by Mr. Fulmer. Second by Mrs. Boyan. And all in favor, show of hands, please. That's unanimous vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I did forget to mention that it is 1 less day as well, just as the other salary schedules were.
Right. We'll still vote that way. I mean, I'm assuming. All right, we are down to enclosure number 50, employment agreement, superintendent, and resolution to establish salary for the superintendent for July 1st. Dee Dee Somavia.
Okay, so this is very similar to the assistant superintendent contracts tonight, but I will go through the terms also for you here. Again, no significant changes to the contract from the one you approved last year. The term is July 1st of 2020 through June 30th, 2023. Again, a 3-year contract. It places the employee at step 2. Again, no cost of living increase. The salary schedule reflects 1 less workday, as we just approved for the other assistant superintendents and certificated in management salary schedules. This does allow for an advanced degree stipend of $650, which is yearly, broken up by month. The employee is eligible for full healthcare coverage, again, a total compensation package, accrual of sick leave 1 time per month, so a total of 12 sick days, accrual of 22 days of vacation annually, a life insurance policy with a value of $125,000. This contract allows for up to 4 professional dues to any education or community organization. So that could be AXA, Rotary, those kinds of things. An auto allowance of $100 per month, and again, eligible for retiree benefits. And I would ask for a vote on this tonight. Yes.
Is there any board discussion at this time? Do I have a motion to approve the superintendent's contract? I have a first motion by Mr. Fulmer, second by Mr. Foster. Mr. Guerrero, your vote?
Yes.
Mr. Foster is a yes.
Yes.
Mr. Fulmer is a yes. Mrs. Naylor?
Yes.
Ms. Vasquez? Oh, she's got her hand up. She says yes. And Ms. Gamoyan?
Yes.
And my vote is yes as well. We're still pleased with what you're doing. Keep up the good work. You still have many challenges ahead of you. That does conclude our meeting for this evening. We got in almost a half hour early, and Mr. Fulmer, you owe me a beer. So
Hey,
thank you all and good night.
You get out a half hour early, it's worth the beer. It'll be a cheap beer, but